Alrighty, welcome back everybody to our latest live stream. We're going to be talking about Hurricane Beryl today, and we are literally barreling into the stream. I know, no pun intended, but today we're going to be talking about Hurricane Beryl, just kind of giving you a live update, what's happening out there, what's expected over the next several days, and we'll kind of talk about what the odds are of this making some sort of appearance or landfall in the United States as well. Even though it's still not really known if it will make a landfall in the United States, it is a possibility long term. So we're going to kind of talk to you about what the possibilities are today. We'll be answering questions throughout the live stream. So today's just going to be kind of like a chill stream in a way, even though that this is a pretty big situation, because obviously this is going to be impacting a lot of people over the next 24 hours in the Lesser Antilles. So as of right now, this is Category 4 Hurricane Beryl. Obviously, if you're just waking up now and you have not been awake for the last like 36 hours, you probably wouldn't know that this is a Category 4 hurricane. You might still think it's a tropical storm, because literally yesterday morning, this was a tropical storm. It was not anything that crazy. Now, granted, it was expected to intensify, but now it's up to Category 4 strength. And earlier this morning, this was a Category 2 hurricane. So really crazy stuff there. Right now, sustained winds at about 130 miles per hour, wind gusts upwards of 160 miles per hour, and it is forecasted to intensify further over the next 12 to 24 hours as it approaches the Lesser Antilles, including areas like St. Lucia, Barbados, for example. Like all the Lesser Antilles basically going to see some sort of impact here. Landfall is expected to be near St. George and also near Hillsborough, going into sometime tomorrow, late morning into the afternoon hours. So this is where our landfall is expected. I've seen some photos on Twitter. There are actually people staying there, and there's also been a lot of boats that have gone away from these islands as well. Like there are cruise ships that were here, they're leaving. If there are sailboats, those people are leaving too. Like there's a lot of people evacuating right now, just purely due to the fact of the intensity of this hurricane, and there's been very little notice. Obviously, this was literally, again, just a tropical storm yesterday, so there's not been a whole lot of notice here. It's only been about maybe a day and a half or so of them knowing, hey, there's going to be a big hurricane coming here to the Lesser Antilles. So unfortunately, very little notice, but at least there is at least some notice here, because this rapid intensification happened really quickly last night. Pressure is down to 958 millibars. Again, this is usually typical for a Category 4 hurricane. Has not increased in terms of wind speed since our video earlier today. So we had our second update video. That was kind of our quote-unquote emergency live stream. We had that earlier today, and so when we made that video, there was no upgrade to this. It was just at 130 miles per hour then, and it still is now. So there's been no changes to that. But as this moves to the west and into tomorrow morning, at the 2 a.m. or 5 a.m. advisory, it'll probably be upwards of 150 miles per hour in terms of sustained winds. Now, you might be wondering, could this become a Category 5 hurricane in the month of June? Well, it won't be, probably, because June ends in like 4 hours, so it's probably not going to be a Category 5. But if it does become a Category 5, it would have to be sometime overnight tonight into tomorrow morning, with another big surge of rapid intensification. There have been a lot of storms that have been blowing up on the eastern eye, and that is usually going to indicate some level of intensification with a hurricane. So we're seeing that right now. The question is, could it even get to a Category 5? Well, I would say the chances really are like 10 to 15% that it actually gets to that point. I don't think it'll happen, but you can't really rule it out, because this thing intensified very quickly overnight last night, and it might do the same tonight. We don't really know, but the sun is set, and so this storm might end up, again, intensifying overnight tonight. Don't forget, 12 hours until 8 a.m. tomorrow. And again, landfall is not expected until sometime late tomorrow morning into the afternoon, and even then, this is not expected to weaken because of landfall. As it continues to move westbound, it's going to continue to move into the Caribbean Sea, where it will start to decrease. It'll start to weaken just a little bit. We're probably going to see at least some surge of at least some wind shear in this area, meaning the higher the wind shear is here across the Caribbean Sea, the quicker that this is going to weaken. And so more than likely, there will be enough wind shear across its track, moving east to west, for this thing to start to weaken out. So definitely something to keep in mind here as this moves to the west. Eventually, as this goes towards the Yucatan Peninsula, it is going to start to weaken from a Category 2 hurricane, eventually into a tropical storm if it makes landfall in the Yucatan. So that is something that we are hoping happens, because if it does weaken over the Yucatan, then once it goes into the Gulf of Mexico, it'll probably start to weaken there as well. So there's some things that we'll have to watch for here over the next several days. But again, the cone of uncertainty right now does leave this area here in the track where we could see the eye of this hurricane go. If that happens, it could very easily go into the Gulf of Mexico, and things could get very dicey especially with it probably not weakening if it did not go over land. Now again, this way, if it goes over the Yucatan, it would end up weakening. So that's the hope right now, that it would do that. But obviously, again, it could go over the Yucatan and then go right back into the Gulf and then eventually go towards Texas or Louisiana. So overall, again, that is the current intensity on this particular system now and what is to come. All right, let's get to some of the graphics. We have a lot of graphics I'm going to kind of show you. We're going to go through some of this stuff here. Is stream elements on? That's a good question. Wait 1 second. I don't think our bot is working in the chat. I don't see it either. Is stream elements here? Stream elements is not here. Okay, that's not good. Wait, give me 1 second. I don't know why it's not here. We'll go to the next slide in a second. Just give me 1 second. I gotta fix this. If you're watching this on the VODs, meaning that you're not watching this live, just skip ahead by like a minute, because I just gotta fix this real quick. I gotta connect Mr. Stream Elements to the chat here. I think. I don't know how you do that. I don't know why it's not here. Hello? Somebody wake Stream Elements up. Alright, I don't know if it's back, but apparently Stream Elements isn't here. It's taking the day off. Okay, let's go to the RAM slider. So we're going to kind of go to some of the slides and stuff like that and kind of give you an idea what's happening. So this is a better view of currently Hurricane Beryl right now. Again, notice the eye right now. This is going to take a second to load, so we'll give it 1 second. This will show higher quality, though, here in a second. Oh, there's Stream Elements. Yay, it's here. All right. All right, give me 1 second. This is going to take a second to load. This is the RAM slider, by the way. This is public. I highly recommend you checking this out. It's CIRA is also where you can find this. This has very high quality graphics when it comes to hurricanes and stuff. So if you're ever looking for something, look up the RAM slider. Here's what it looks like here in terms of the hurricane right now. So again, notice all the convection that's been building on this storm over the last 24, or really over the last 12, this is the last like 5 hours, but over the last 5 hours here, all those reds and dark reds are going to indicate building cloud tops, basically very cold cloud tops aloft. We are seeing that a lot more on the eastern side of this hurricane now. For some reason, it's not fully loading in, but it's kind of skipping frames. But right there, you'll kind of see it here at the end. You start to see that dark red there. That is an indication of intensification with this hurricane. We just alluded to that a second ago. Here's what it looks like on the geocolor satellite, and obviously it looks pretty scary when you look at it on the geocolor. You know, this looks like a classic hurricane, and it also looks like a classic category 3 or 4 hurricane, which that's what it is right now. It's a category 4. Again, you can see that thunderstorm development right here over the last few minutes. Notice the timestamp. You actually can't see it, but this is over the last 10 minutes. So this is only showing you the last 10 minutes of this hurricane, and that right there is the intensification that we are seeing right now. We're starting to see some more thunderstorms blow up in that eye wall, and usually when that happens, again, that does lead to some intensification over time. So definitely something to watch for. There's been lots of lightning with this over the last 12 hours as well. Lightning is not something that you see very frequently in the eye of a storm unless it's a strong hurricane. So in this case, that's what we're seeing right now. And this is another view, by the way. This is over the, I think, last 5 hours too. Yeah, this is the last 6 hours. Again, just look at that thing barreling along, literally. There's gonna be a lot of puns with the barreling term, like literally, because it's called Beryl. I don't know who named the hurricane Beryl, but you know, barreling along is going to be a pretty common theme here over the next several days, because it's literally barreling along. It's going about 25 miles per hour to the west, by the way. It's actually pretty fast. Here's the tropical tidbits, by the way, view of this. Again, we have multiple infrared imagery views. I don't know why. I just put a bunch in here. So that's another one. Actually, you can kind of see on the last few minutes here. Let's this is actually interesting. Wait. I didn't even see this before. Look at this. All right. Look at the eye right now. All right, this was as of 4 hours ago or so. Okay, look at the eye here. This is 4 hours ago. If we go to right now, you can actually see it wobbling a little bit. The eye over the last few infrared imagery scans has actually been wobbling. That sometimes does mean intensification's happening. So that's definitely something to watch for. And again, all that thunderstorm development here on the eastern side of this hurricane right now, it's really exploding. The dark reds all around this, that's again an indication of thunderstorms blowing up, but it's actually starting to wobble a little bit. We saw that with hurricane, it wasn't Ian. What was the hurricane last year? I can't remember the name for some reason. What was the hurricane last year that made landfall in the Florida Panhandle? The Cat 3 or Cat 4? Does anybody remember the name of that one? I'm horrible with names, but I'm pretty sure this is actually pretty reminiscent of what we saw with that before it made landfall. It started to wobble a little bit. Anybody know what the name was? Dahlia, thank you. All right, yeah. So Dahlia, Dahlia actually did a very similar thing to this before it made landfall. It again had a very defined eye, and then it started to wobble, and that usually does indicate that we are starting to see more intensification. So that is another sign that this is probably going to intensify over the next 12 hours. And again, a lot of this intensification is going to happen overnight tonight. Now, here's a view of the entire tropics, the entire Atlantic Ocean. A couple things to note real quickly before we keep going into what's happening with Beryl. We actually have a tropical depression that's developed in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. That's Tropical Depression 3. This is expected to become a brief tropical storm before making landfall in Mexico tomorrow. This would be named Chris if it does end up developing. And then we have another area of development right behind Beryl. This is our other disturbance here, and this is also expected to become some sort of tropical storm over the next few days. Has a 40% chance of development over the next 2 days, and then it has about a 70% chance of development over the long term. If we go back to the RAM slider, you'll actually be able to see that thunderstorm activity if it loads in, which it might not. Let me refresh this real quick. Right here. So that's the storm activity. So that would be our next potential developing system. So just off to the east again of Hurricane Beryl right now. This will likely be our fourth named storm unless Chris does not become named in the Southwest Gulf. So that's what we're looking at there. All right, here's the official track from the National Hurricane Center. We'll kind of go piece by piece here. So again, hurricane warnings in effect for parts of the Lesser Antilles. We also have some other warnings and watches in effect in various areas. Tropical storm watches have already been issued for those in parts of the Dominican Republic, and also back over near Haiti. We have some tropical storm watches in a few other locations in the Lesser Antilles, and then again, this is your area of hurricane warnings where the greatest impacts are expected, with storm surge, flooding being possible, and as well as high hurricane force winds. As of right now, again, it is a major hurricane. It is expected to continue, and it's likely to intensify to about 145-mile-per-hour winds. That's going to be the maximum sustained winds just to the east of the Lesser Antilles as we go into the overnight hours tonight. Right there would be sometime, it's kind of cut off on the screen, but sometime tonight, probably around 2 a.m. or so, is when it's expected to intensify a bit further. Let's maximize that a little bit. Literally maximum velocity. But that area right there, again, that's where we're expecting this to become a Category 4 hurricane. It still is one right now, but it's going to intensify to 145-mile-per-hour sustained winds. Once we go throughout the day, Monday into Tuesday, again, weakening trend is expected. Eventually, by Wednesday, it is expected to go back to a Category 2 hurricane, pending that no major intensification beyond what's already forecasted happens tonight. So that's just something to keep in mind there. And then eventually, if it does make landfall in the Yucatan, it'll decrease to a strong tropical storm. But again, it could also go into the Gulf of Mexico just directly. It might not even make landfall in the Yucatan. There is a low chance that happens, but more than likely, this is going to make landfall over in the Yucatan Peninsula there in Mexico. And then after that, things are very uncertain. If it goes towards Louisiana, that's a possibility. If it goes into the Pacific Ocean or even throughout Mexico, that is also a possibility. It also could go towards Texas. There are multiple different scenarios right now with Hurricane Beryl over the long term, which is why I keep saying here, there is, again, a lot of uncertainty. It's really hard to tell where this is going to go. If somebody tells you on Facebook, for example, hey, we're definitely getting this in Texas, that's not necessarily true, because it might not go towards Texas. There is still at least probably about a 40 or 50% chance that either Texas or Louisiana do not see impacts from Beryl, aside from maybe some higher wave heights offshore, for example. So right now, there's still a lot of uncertainty long term. Here's the rainfall that's expected in the Lesser Antilles over the next 24 hours. Many areas picking up between 8 to 10 inches of rain. Some areas could even get higher than that in localized areas. Again, primarily again in the Lesser Antilles. And then once it goes towards the Dominican Republic and Haiti, there will probably be some rain there, but I think it's going to be more of a tropical storm-based impact zone for those areas. So tropical storm force winds, and then perhaps some sort of storm surge right along the coastline will be possible. But I think the hurricane will stay a bit to the south of your location. Now, long term, there is going to be at least some weakening. We've alluded to this several times in this live stream already, but this is the computer model, basically spaghetti chart, if you will, with all the different computer models associated onto one graphic here. And again, on Tropical Tidbits, you can see this as well. It gives you an idea of how this is going to progress over time. And notice, again, it's probably going to peak tonight. That is where all the computer models are currently at right now, is that the peak of the intensity will be tonight. And then eventually, as we go throughout the day tomorrow, it'll start to weaken just slowly but surely. And then once we go later into the week, it'll continue a weakening trend. And again, if it makes landfall over Mexico, this is expected. It will more than likely be a tropical storm. If it doesn't make landfall over the Yucatan of Mexico, it could still stay a category 2 or category 1 hurricane and eventually go into the Gulf of Mexico and actually pose greater impacts to the United States. So that's going to be something to really watch for over the next several days. Now, almost every computer model right now has this going into the Yucatan Peninsula. That is really the hope at this point for at least us in maybe Texas or Louisiana, because if it doesn't make landfall here, and again, it goes into the Gulf, it's going to stay as a at least category 1 or 2 hurricane, and it will be much easier for that to rapidly intensify in the Gulf if conditions are primed. So that'll be something to watch for very closely. But again, it's going to depend a lot on this ridge that's going to be in place in the southeast United States, and how strong this ridge is also going to play a factor into the exact track of Hurricane Beryl. But again, most computer models right now are bringing this towards Mexico or Texas. So that's really the main area that we're watching for, at least in the long term, but we still have to monitor the weather very closely in Louisiana and Texas. Now, if you're wondering if Florida's going to hit by this, or the Carolinas, or whatever other area you're thinking, well, even the ensembles, which usually have a much wider spread when it comes to variation in terms of tracking these sorts of storms, overall, it's not even close to going towards any of those areas, because again, we're going to have a very strong ridge in place, and as long as it stays really strong, it's more than likely going to pull it somewhere into here if it stays strong. If it's a bit weaker or even a bit further to the west, it'll more than likely go into Mexico. Right now, it is more forecasted to go again towards Mexico or South Texas, pretty similar to what Alberto did a few weeks back when it hit Texas. It might have a similar path to that, so that's going to be something to watch again very closely for as we go into really the later half of this week and eventually into the weekend in terms of the long-term track. So that's what we're looking at in terms of the forecast. Again, we'll be answering questions. We'll be kind of you know, answering questions, chatting about Hurricane Beryl as it barrels off to the west over the next several days, really, and probably over the next week and a half. That's looks like what this is going to be doing. Probably next 7 or 10 days. That's the long-term track of where this will be going and how long it'll be out there in the Atlantic Ocean and eventually into the Caribbean and Gulf. All right, let me get to chat here. I gotta tell you, the chat summary that it gives you in chat is always so weird. And it actually is pretty accurate sometimes, which is kind of crazy. Thank you, Beckett, for the $4.99. I've been watching for a couple months now after a lifelong tornado lover and fear. Okay, that's interesting. You love and fear tornadoes. Very interesting. You're the best in the game. I appreciate that, Beckett. Thank you for the $4.99. Thank you, Shifty, for the $1.99. Is this going to hit Texas after landfall in Cancun? As I mentioned before, it could. It's really not known if it will. I am leaning towards this making landfall in Texas or Louisiana. I've said this all day today. I think I even said it yesterday. I can't remember, but I am really leaning towards this going towards somewhere either in South Texas or it's going to go probably towards Louisiana. I don't feel like there's going to be a whole lot of in between there. So really my thinking is it's probably going to be doing one or the other, but again, it might not. It might go right into Mexico and just go directly west if this ridge does remain a bit weaker and does not have that counter or that clockwise pull up to the north. That's really going to be the biggest thing to watch for, is going to be this ridge. Because right now, this hurricane, again, is just going due west pretty much, or just west-northwest. So the only thing that's going to really pull this would be that ridge. And if it does, again, stay strong enough, it would just get pulled right into Louisiana. If it's weaker, I think it'll more than likely either just keep going west into Mexico, or if it gets just the smallest tug to the north, it might go into South Texas. So I don't feel like there's a whole lot of in between there. I think it's either going to make landfall right along the Texas and Mexico border, or it's going to make landfall back over in Louisiana. I really just don't feel like there's going to be a whole lot of other things that happen. That's just my gut feeling. Again, forecastable wise, it's not really something you can forecast this long term, because again, if you look at the computer models, they are all over the place, or at least the ensembles. They are literally all over the place here across the board. And again, yeah, you had a model going towards Florida, which, by the way, I highly doubt we're going to see anything in Florida out of this. If anything, it's just higher wave heights. But, I mean, more than anything, I am leaning towards some sort of landfall over here in Texas and Mexico. That's where most of the ensembles are showing, or at least most of the computer models in this ensemble are showing where this would go. But again, it could go a bit further off to the north, and also it could just go further west. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. Just my gut feeling is saying that this is going to make landfall either right there along the Mexico and Texas border for the second landfall after the Yucatan, or make landfall maybe in Louisiana. But again, that's over a week out. There's not really a whole lot that we know about beyond 5 days. You kind of just put a Plinko chip down a board of these locations up and down anywhere from Mexico City all the way back through Florida. Put a Plinko chip down a board, put all the locations in there, and that's your guess. Basically, it's more of a guess at this point, what's going to happen beyond going through the Yucatan, because sometimes when it interacts with land like the Yucatan, it can change directions quite a bit. But we've seen this story before, right? We've seen a lot of hurricanes that even go into the Southwest Gulf. A lot of the time there's a ridge that does pull them off to the north. We've seen that very commonly. Not saying that's going to happen, but we've seen that story before. We've seen it plenty of times. So again, that's just my thinking right now. Thank you, Paradox, for the $2 super chat. I don't think Georgia's going to hit by this. I mean, again, you might get some rain out of it at some point, but I highly doubt Georgia's going to get anything out of this, because that's where the ridge is going to be at. So as long as the ridge is there, it's going to steer it pretty much away from you no matter what, as long as it's kind of over Georgia. Thank you, Beckett, for becoming a member, and welcome to the Velocities. Thank you, Art Delta, for the $5 super chat. Let's hope this doesn't stall in the Gulf, regain fuel, and head north. I mean, that's my fear. Literally. I mean, it's literally my fear, is that something like that will happen. Now, again, we're over 7 days out. We don't really know if that's going to happen, but that is obviously the fear, because we've, again, seen that story before. It has happened several times over the last, really few years. It's really been in the last 6 years that we've had a lot of that stuff happen. I feel like before 2016, we didn't have a whole lot of hurricanes that just stalled in the Gulf. A lot of them just kept going. So, but it just kind of varies. Hey, Notre Dame for the $2 super chat. Could Bahamas get any considerable outer bands? I doubt it too. I mean, again, the hurricane field will probably be about this big or so, maybe even a bit smaller than that for those outer bands, which the outer bands, again, just bring showers, thunderstorms, maybe some gusty winds. But aside from that, I don't think you're going to see anything meaningful unless you're in the southern part of the Bahamas, where you could get some showers and thunderstorms, but again, nothing meaningful I would expect there. Thank you, Vow, for the $2 super chat. What day next week will we know the track 90% plus? Probably gonna be in about, I mean, I don't even know if we need to wait till next week, because right now it's Sunday. I mean, if you consider this week as next week, then I guess that's fine. But I mean, we'll probably know by Tuesday or Wednesday at least. We'll at least have a cone of uncertainty that probably stretches out in this area sometime by Tuesday or Wednesday is my guess. I don't think it'll be much farther after that, but if you're talking about like a 90% chance of making landfall in a particular area, well, you need the hurricane within like 2 or 3 days of landfall to know like a 90% chance of where it might be making landfall. So, but I would say probably in about 2 days, maybe even a little bit less, until we know if Texas will be in the cone of uncertainty, which I think it will. But again, some things could change over the next 24 hours. Right now, as I mentioned, Hurricane Beryl is starting to wobble just a little bit, which is not something that you want to see. This does usually indicate intensification. You can see that right here over the last few, really the last 10, 15, 20 minutes, it's just starting to wobble a little bit. You'll start to see that eye wobble a little bit. That usually does indicate intensification. So. Okay. Hey, you, Adam, for becoming a member, and welcome to the Velocities. All right, let me get to chat here. Is this on Radar Omega? The other stuff was. This isn't. I'm just on the NOAA website. Yeah, eye wobbles are really not good. Again, this, depending on what happens overnight tonight, this could become a strong Category 4, maybe even a Category 5. And with, again, wobbles are not something you want to see. That does indicate intensification. We had that with Hurricane Dorian back in 2019, and I don't recall. I think Ian did too, at least once. My memory really sucks, but I'm pretty sure Ian did too, and that a lot of the time does indicate some eye wall replacement, which is something that we don't want. It's not a huge wobble, but it's definitely noticeable. It's just like a small little wobble, just a small little one. But yeah, you can't really see it as well on here, but you can kind of just see the eye closing a little bit. And there's a lot of thunderstorm development on the east side, which is also, again, another sign of intensification. Right now, again, it's at a Category 4, sustained winds around 130. We can put on the aircraft data here. Let me go back to tropical hurricane hunters. They did. Wait, let me put it over here. The Hurricane Hunter's latest data was 7 hours ago. That was back over here to the east. You can actually see all the data on here, which is pretty interesting. Now, Hurricane Hunters have a really tough job. I don't know if you've ever seen a video on, like, them flying into a hurricane, but it's very, very turbulent. That's all I gotta say. It's a very turbulent ride. I've seen it before. It's not cool. It's probably, it might be one of the hardest jobs over, like, you know, like when it comes to planes. It's tough. There's a lot of turbulence. There's a few wind barbs here that are around 110 to 120 knots from earlier. I think the highest I saw there was about 110. Let me go back to here. Let me take that off. But 110 in knots, I believe, is about 122 in miles per hour. 125, 126. All right, so yeah, it was about 120, approximately 127 miles per hour was measured as of 7 hours ago. And so, with that said, that is basically a Category 3 hurricane, which is why they upgraded it as of 7 hours ago or so, or 8 hours ago. They upgraded actually at 11:35, so it's a little bit longer than that. I think they have another aircraft taking off. I am trying to find that here, or they might already have one there. Yeah, they actually have one there right now. Oh, okay. They actually have data coming in right now. We're going to check this out. Let me pull it up. This is as of now. They're literally, as long as it's updated, I think they're in the storm as we speak. There's actually 2 different aircraft in Hurricane Beryl right now. So 2 different Hurricane Hunters. Let's see. Let me go to this first. So again, this is as of 025Z, so that was very recently. That's the last time this was updated. It's actually this is as of a few minutes ago. So this is moments ago. Can't really see a clear wind barb in there, but pressure's still being measured around 958 right now. So they are in it. Gonna see if we can pull up the wind chart here too. They have a couple charts on here too. You can tell when they're in the hurricane, by the way. Look how far the pressure drops right here. This is the chart. Look at the top left. Or actually, let me just put it into full screen here. Let's do that. Like right there. Look at this drop in pressure. They were at like 1,010 millibars flying in, or like on the outskirts, and then they start to fly in, and it just drops like a cannon. I mean, that's unbelievable. All the way down to 958 or so. That's the approximate reading. It's a lot of interesting data. I don't see an exact wind speed, though. It's hard to see all the wind barbs in the middle. They're really blend in. I'm going to try to zoom in on my top monitor and see if I can read one. I don't see anything different from before, at least. So that's, I'd say, temporarily good news. Yeah, it's right now 958 millibars, and they had the latest National Hurricane Center update was 50 minutes ago. That was the 8 p.m. advisory. They have another one at 11, which is bottom left of your screen. It says that. That's going to be their next one. So, by the way, I did not mention this yet, but we do have a overlay for hurricanes now. If you didn't notice, this is the first time ever we've had an overlay like this. So it shows you the infrared imagery below me. It shows you the National Hurricane Center below me as well. And it also has some wording at the top that scrolls across the screen. So we just did that today. I didn't really think of it until today, because I wasn't really thinking we were gonna have a hurricane like this until like I wasn't planning on going live for this at all. I mean, like literally, unless it impacted the United States, but like this is just taking such a shocking turn over the last 24 hours. Cat 5. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if it got to a Cat 5. It is a stretch though. Their current forecast from the National Hurricane Center, this is the latest. The highest it goes right now from them is 145 miles per hour. Honestly, I could see it going higher than that. But again, that eye wobble would be one of the ways that could happen if we get some sort of eye wall replacement. So it's very possible. But as long as it stays in a relatively low wind shear environment, which it's expected to for the next like day or two, it should. The wind shear is going to increase as we go further into the Western Caribbean, and unless this is a really powerful hurricane with wind shear values that are less than like 10 or like less than like 40 knots or something like that, it could stay as strong as it is now. But I really highly doubt that. It should have some gradual weakening trend as it goes into the Caribbean. Now again, this could re-intensify somewhere in the Gulf, as I mentioned. It's just one of those situations where it may or may not happen. And if it does, again, more than likely this would go towards Texas, Louisiana, or just directly into Mexico. I think one of these three scenarios will happen. I still have a lot of doubt that this hurricane would go right past the Yucatan Peninsula without making any sort of landfall. If that happens, that's again worst case scenario for the United States, because if that did happen, we would probably get some sort of major impacts bearing some sort of really high wind shear environment, and, you know, just something crazy happening. I mean, it would be really just a very long stretch that anything would really weaken it from there if it did just get into the open Gulf of Mexico waters without hitting the Yucatan. Category 6 hurricane, absolutely. It's very well in play. If you're on TikTok, and I mean, I bet probably about at least 50 of you that are watching probably watch TikToks on a daily basis. I'm going to tell you right now, TikTok is not the place for weather information. And also, TikTok is going to tell you there's a category 6 hurricane coming. Maybe they might even get up to like category 7 or 8 now. It's possible. Like, they might be increasing the TikTok, hurricane scale. I don't know. I haven't watched any TikToks in the last like year, but I'm pretty sure that number might be, it might be up to category 9s or something here soon. Who knows? Thank you, Mark, for the $4.99. When will you put Connor chasing in his helicopter? In his helicopter? I don't know how much a helicopter costs, but there's no way we're getting Connor a helicopter. That would be like insane, though. Thank you, Weather with Gary, for the $9.99. Appreciate the generosity. TikTok is like literally, I don't know why people even listen to TikTok. I don't. How I track this on Radar Omega? You just go to tropical weather. You can add all this stuff on here, and you do need a subscription. We have a tornado warning in Canada, apparently. You need the satellite. You need a subscription for the satellite imagery. There's a tornado warning over in Calgary. I want to check this out real quick. I don't know how long this has been going. I just noticed it. Actually, pretty strong near Nanton. Might be some hail contamination there, though. Well, it's interesting. We don't really cover Canada, but... Alright, let me put back on the... Actually, one thing we could do... Hurricane Beryl. We can do clean infrared. It's actually another view of it. It's a cleaner view of what Hurricane Beryl looks like right now. Let's go back 21 frames. You can see that small little eye wobble there as it moves west. Yeah, Category 10 hurricanes are going to exist on TikTok probably within the next month or so. With how historic this hurricane season's going to be, I think it's very well in play. It's going to get crazy on TikTok here soon. Thank you, Vicky, for the $1.99. What about the effect of Saharan dust on this for Texas? I don't think Saharan dust is going to weaken this at all. Let me find the Saharan dust map real quick. I mean, there's Saharan dust, like, already around this hurricane. But I don't think it's going to weaken it. Like, there's just not enough of it to begin with. I don't think Saharan dust is going to do anything to this, like, to weaken it. That's another unfortunate thing, too. The cheapest copters are, like, 600 grand for a Robinson R22. I wouldn't want to be in a helicopter to begin with. Like, I've never been in a helicopter before. I wouldn't want to be in one. Appreciate the $4.99. There's no way. No way I want to be in a helicopter. Thank you, Mike, for the super chat. Or, sorry, thank you, Mike, for becoming a 1-month member. Thank you, Gary, for the $4.99. Now, this is actually a pretty I mean, like, what we're going to see in St. George's tomorrow, and Barbados, and the Grenadines, or I think that's how you pronounce it, it's going to be catastrophic. What we're going to see there tomorrow. Significant storm surge, flooding rains, which flooding shouldn't be a big concern since this is just moving so fast, but unfortunately, I think just the storm surge aspect of this and the flooding potential still exists with it, even though it's not a huge, thing. And then also to go along with both of those, we also have the potential for very high hurricane force winds. They could get upwards of 140 once this gets closer to land. So, you know, hopefully this weakens before it gets there. I really doubt it's going to weaken by anything if it does weaken, but yeah. Unfortunately, this does not look like a good situation, though, for those in the Lesser Antilles. You have a lot of Canadian viewers. I have no clue. We've never really covered Canada. We've done very minimal coverage there. Thank you, Riley, for the $4.99. Cool. Can't wait. Appreciate it. We'll probably have either a members-only stream of it, or we might do it on an actual live stream, depending on how many packages we get. Live cameras. Well, I'm not going to be doing... so when this makes landfall in the Lesser Antilles tomorrow, I don't think we're doing live coverage for it. Because tomorrow, we actually have a chance for strong tornadoes in Nebraska. So we're probably going to be live for that. This is the threat level for tornadoes right now. Now, it's a 5%, it's not a 10%, but there will be a chance for an isolated strong tornado or two in Nebraska. And then outside of that, we could see tornadoes in general. But it's a low risk. Will they upgrade this to a hatch 10%? I don't know. We've had a lot of 5% like this that have been conditional. I think tomorrow is also conditional for strong tornadoes, but I think it is a possibility. So I wouldn't rule it out. I was actually waiting for the 00Z HRRR model run to come through, because this is... We're only on the first, hour of the run, but it should be coming through here in the next, 20 minutes or so. So I was going to see what the latest data is. I don't know what cameras even are out here. To be honest, I have no clue. I mean, you're not going to see anything tonight anyways, because it's already nighttime, and the eye of the storm isn't even close. It's really not that close to land yet. I mean, the closest land is Bridgetown, which is the Barbados, and that's still over 180 miles away from the eye, which is actually quite a bit of a distance. But it might sound like a ways away, but this thing's going pretty fast to the west right now. Appreciate that, Trevor. Thank you for the 279. Yes, I check Stream Elements donations. I check all donations as long as I remember to. Or as long as I see them. The only one I don't ever see... sometimes I don't see Venmos, but most of the time I do. Because it goes through my phone. Thank you, Earl, for the $5 super chat. Which of the following do you like... or which do you like following more, hurricanes or tornadoes? I would have to say tornadoes. I mean, we can do... I don't mind doing hurricane coverage like this, doing like a Q&A sort of thing. Like, I don't mind doing this. But, like, the one thing about hurricane coverage in general is that it's usually very repetitive. So, that's like the biggest thing with hurricane coverage. I don't mind doing that still. It can be extremely repetitive. So... depending on what, again, it just depends on a lot of factors still. It's typically pretty repetitive. Same thing with winter storms. It's like the same thing. I mean, if we have storm chasers, like at the day of landfall or whatever, it's definitely not repetitive. But like doing forecasts well in advance is usually pretty repetitive. Thank you, KJ, for the $5 super chat. Covering the Ocean Canada. The Ocean Canada. Wow. Calling Canada an ocean? That's crazy. Here's the last couple of infrared imagery radar scans here. Actually, on the last few... let's try to get the RAM slider up here again. I think we're going to go a bit closer on this. Let's see. We're going to pull up the RAM slider and do the infrared imagery again on this. I'm trying to see if it's actually wobbling. It did wobble a little bit. Another big convective burst here on the east side of the eye again. We've had a few of these. Got a few big convective bursts here. This is the RAM slider on this. And notice how clear the eye was for a pretty long time, and now it's kind of wobbling and shrinking a little bit. And that could be an eye wall replacement that we're seeing. Just kind of see a wobble, just a little bit. Wobble, wobble. So it might be weakening. Or not weakening, sorry. It might be intensifying. Might have like a brief weakening stage, but it will probably intensify after that. Which again is why right now this is forecasted to become a stronger Category 4 hurricane. sustained winds upwards of 175 miles per hour right now. Still expected to become pretty strong here. There is a tornado warning in Alberta. Yeah, I think if, for those in Florida, there's like almost no chance this makes landfall in Florida. It would take a serious change in the forecast for this to make landfall in Florida. Like, a serious change. There's no way this makes landfall in Florida unless we see the ridge just decide, hey, I'm going to move almost 1,000 miles to the east. Like, that's how big of a change would be needed. Thank you, Mike, for the $5 super chat. 180 miles is quite far away. Learn something new every day. I mean, it is pretty far away. It depends on how fast it's moving, though. I mean, hurricanes do not move as fast as like a thunderstorm typically. Large-scale features large-scale features like this, comparably to like a tornado or something like that. Usually these move way slower. Sometimes these don't move very fast at all. It depends on what other features are around. Like, we have a high-pressure system. Like, let's just say there's a high-pressure system. And there's like another low, like let's say this is like wedged in between two different systems or something like that. Sometimes it's just really slow. Or if we have a high pressure system that's just kind of really trying to pull it up to the north or something like that, then we got something, got like another ridge that's trying to counter it back down to the south or something like that. That would slow it down too. So there's a lot of ways that hurricanes can also be very slow. We saw that with Dorian, for example. Hurricane Dorian back in 2019, it literally sat off near the Bahamas for, I don't know, it was several days. It was like, it was there for like a day or two at least. It was just kind of sitting there, it barely moved, and then it started to speed up. Saw that with Hurricane Harvey. It just sat offshore and didn't really move at all. So as long as it's not wedged between like two ridges or something like that, it usually can go pretty fast. The only thing that's going to really move this thing would be, again, the ridge. And if it's strong enough, we're going to probably see this pulled up into like Louisiana or Texas, one of the two. If it's weaker, we're probably going to see this just kind of go to the west into Mexico. So there's a couple different scenarios. I am still leaning towards the landfall being somewhere in South Texas or northern Mexico. But again, we'll have to kind of wait and see what happens here over the next several days. This is a 3D scan also. I forgot to show you guys this. This is a 3D view of Hurricane Beryl. Actually kind of cool. It's actually really cool. Thank you, Mark, for the 5 gifted members. I appreciate it. If you got a gifted membership, make sure to thank Mark in the chat. Thank you, Lindsay, for the $9.99. That's awesome. Glad you enjoyed them. Do you know if there were any other Category 4 hurricanes in June? Not in recorded history in the Atlantic Ocean. I mean, this is historic. Now, granted, we are literally 1 day away from July. This is like the very tail end of June. But this is the first ever hurricane that we've had in the month of June that's a Category 4 or higher. We've never had one like this. That's why this is just so historic, and that's why this is just so shocking to many people. It's actually kind of a crazy view right there. Let's go back to this one. Do clean IR. Clean IR better than the long wave IR. I do not like the long wave IR at all. Oh, I actually can't do it on this thing. Can I do it on this? Or do I only can do it on the small ones? Okay. We'll go back to this. I like that. Go back to clean IR. There we go. Look at the 3D view of that going west to east. That looks so crazy. Thank you, Rooster, for the $9.99. Thank you, Laura, for the $9.99. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm not burnt out. I really haven't been. I mean, like, I do enjoy doing this. But we need a break at some point. I was talking to Connor, too, about this. Connor Croft. And he wants a break, too, for the 4th of July. I want a break for the 4th of July. I don't think we're going to be here on the 4th of July. Like July 3rd and 4th. I think I'm going to be on vacation for a couple days. Get a little break. We've been live literally every day. This is the, I think, 11th day in a row that we've been live now. Tomorrow would be the 12th, as long as we do go live, which is pretty likely, so. The new tornado warning in Canada? On that same storm. Let's check it out real quick. Honestly, it doesn't even really look like it's rotating that much. Looks kind of minimal. You're in Nanton. Looks like more of just wind and hail to me. I mean, your safe place, though. I don't know. Canada warnings are kind of weird. They make these warnings way too big. I saw a warning earlier that literally covered, like, it was up here in, it was like in this part of Maine. There was a warning for like this entire county right here, and the storm was like down here. And so all these people are like, I don't know how many people live here, but like northwest or whatever this town is, like those people had to be in their safe place when there was literally no storms even there. It's like, I don't know. That's weird. Canada is, they need to work on their warning system a bit. It's been kind of like that for a while. I mean, I think it's been getting better, but it's definitely not where it needs to be. 11 days in a row is wild. It is wild. And every one of those live streams, I'm pretty sure, has been at greater than 4 hours, or at least greater than 3 hours. It's been crazy. Today's live stream, I highly doubt will be 3 hours long, but it'll at least be like an hour and a half, maybe. Thank you, Gee, for the $9.99. If it's Texas, will it cause thunderstorms and tornadoes? It's too early to tell. I mean, a lot of the time when we have hurricanes that get close to the United States, that does happen on the eastern side of a tropical storm or hurricane, sometimes even the northern side. Will that actually happen, though? It depends on where it makes landfall and where it goes. I mean, Alberto brought that localized tornado threat, which is only a few weeks ago. I don't know if I can go back in time that far, but like Alberto made landfall like over here somewhere. It was like near Corpus Christi. And we end up having a tornado risk. Let me get a different color here. I ended up having a tornado risk like across a pretty good chunk of the state for that particular evening. And I didn't go live for it because nothing ever actually got on the ground. But, you know, there were some areas of rotation. There were probably like a dozen tornado warnings, maybe 2 dozen. So it's possible that we see some sort of tornado threat or severe weather, but it depends on the track. And it's going to depend also on where it makes landfall, because if it makes landfall down here, for example, we're not going to get any threat of severe weather probably, or tornadoes at least. But if it makes landfall in Louisiana, for example, there's a pretty solid chance we're going to see tornadoes across, like, you know, eastern Louisiana or western Mississippi. But again, it depends on if it makes landfall and when it makes landfall in the United States. But the outer bands are the ones that usually produce that tornado threat. If you remember with Hurricane Ian, a couple years back, we had that go right near Cape Coral. That's where it made landfall. But like the day before it made landfall, it was like down here or so, we had these outer bands that dropped multiple tornadoes across the southern side of the state. And so, you know, severe weather threats or tornado threats in general with hurricanes are typically going to happen when the hurricane is still, you know, kind of out here, for example, and we get these outer bands. That's usually where that threat resides. It doesn't usually happen in the inner bands of a hurricane. So if you look at the hurricane right now, for example, I mean, I bet there's probably some water spouts that have been happening out here, but like in here, this is just all hurricane force winds and such. So, you know, this is where we'd be watching for tornadoes, and even sometimes it can wrap up into here too. In rare cases, we get a brief tornado on like the south or west side, but that hardly ever happens. It's typically going to be wrapped in here, as long as the storms are going like northeast, north, or northwest. Sometimes they can be oriented directly east or west with a hurricane, but again, it's less common. Thank you, Broiler, for the $9.99 super chat. Are we talking about conspiracy theories here? Thank you, Bree, for the $10 super chat. Or Venmo, sorry. I appreciate that. Thank you, Bree. Thank you, Paxer, for the $1.99. Max, I had a dream meeting you. Okay. Appreciate the super chat. Thanks for sharing your dreams with me. Is there a way to show the satellite image of the clouds? I mean, I can show you geocolor, but it's nighttime. You can't see anything out here. This is the geocolor, which does look pretty similar to the visible satellite, but it's not. But it's nighttime. You can't see out here. This is all you can see, which I don't even know if this is updated. Let me refresh. I don't think that's updated. Yeah, this is updated here. This is the updated view on geocolor, which, again, looks creepy and eerie. That's kind of what it looks like, though. I mean, the ocean's black because it's nighttime. You can't see anything. I mean, we could go back to... we have to go to full disk for this. Actually, you can kind of see it. You can see the dividing line here. This is full disk. So it'll show you geocolor both day and nighttime, though. If we go back far enough. We have to go back like 42 images, I'm pretty sure. Wait for it to load here. The packs are for the $1.99. You're good. I just said thanks for sharing your dreams. I appreciate it. If I get another question about answering hurricanes, it doesn't even matter who asks it. I mean, like, I was getting absolutely spammed on Twitter today. People either talking to me about how I can't eat cheese curds again, or do you cover hurricanes? One of the two. Even people were commenting on today's video about it. Okay, can Geo... Unfortunately, this takes a lot to load, so it might take a second. I'm trying to get this to load, though. This is, again, the RAM slider on CIRA, Colorado State Research website. Hey, Kelly, for the 1 month member. No problem. Appreciate you tuning in. Alright, I'm just gonna put this on my top monitor until it actually loads. Waiting for it to load. Takes a minute or two sometimes. My computer is very fast, but like, I don't know, I think it's just the website. Do I cover tornadoes? That's a new one. Hey, Michael for the $5 super chat. Active season for Florida this year with water temps. I mean, I think it's gonna be active everywhere in the Atlantic Ocean. I don't think it's just gonna be one spot. I think the entire Atlantic Ocean is gonna be so active. Like, we're again at the end of June. We have a Category 4 hurricane. It's just unheard of. And we have 3 areas that we're watching. We got a tropical depression in the Southwest Gulf. We alluded to it earlier. I'll show you guys again because I'm still waiting for that thing to load. I mean, this is what the Atlantic Ocean looks like right now. This is something that you would usually see in the month of, like, August. Like, you don't usually see this at the end of June. Got a tropical depression here, which is probably going to be a brief tropical storm as it crashes into Mexico. Got another area of development, which this will probably become a tropical depression. It'll probably become a tropical storm too, but probably a tropical depression within the next couple of days. And then again, Beryl, which is a Category 4 right now. It's just, it's crazy. Really, it's crazy to say the least. And stuff like this is just not that common during this time of the year. That you kept for the $5 super chat. Could Beryl strengthen again if it goes into the Gulf? Absolutely. Yeah, we talked about this earlier. If you didn't watch the first like 15 minutes of the live stream, you might not know that, but at least you might not heard that conversation. But yeah, it's very possible that if it goes into the Gulf, it will re-strengthen. It's gonna depend on a lot of things, though. Again, it's gonna depend on if, hey, does it make landfall in the Yucatan? Does it just go directly west into Mexico and maybe Mexico City or something like that and just dies out over Mexico? Does it go into the Gulf? Does it take a big boomerang shot towards Louisiana? Like, those things we don't really know. It's still very far out. I mean, if we made a cone of uncertainty past the mark of when it makes landfall in the Yucatan, the cone of uncertainty would probably be about this large. I mean, like, low-key, it would be huge. Like, it's just a massive area that we don't know where this is going to go. Now, it's likely that this is going to go somewhere in here. It's probably going to continue to go west as long as the ridge does not really intensify and it stays weaker. But there's a possibility, too, it takes a turn and goes north if this ridge is strong. If the ridge is strong, that clockwise turn is going to be able to turn this thing up to the north towards Louisiana. Again, computer models are kind of all over the place still with that placement of where it goes. A lot of the computer models recently have been in unison of where it makes landfall, but with a storm like this, it is so hard to tell. This is this is actually the latest computer model run. We didn't show you guys this yet, but this just came in. So this is the latest run from all sorts of different computer models. Again, this is just a spaghetti chart, if you will. And so this entire area is where almost every model has it now. So either Texas or Mexico. But I want to remind you, like, oops, my camera? Never mind. All right. So what I was saying is that I want to remind you with a hurricane like Ian or something like that, the consistency for where landfall was happening was all over the place too. Like it looked like it was going to go to one spot and then it changed like in the last couple of days before it made landfall. And if we see more rapid intensification, this could change directions and go somewhere else. So this is still very... it's sketchy to make a forecast based off of this because it could still change, even though almost every model has it going towards Texas and Mexico right now. And it, again, depends on a lot of factors, and this is still 7 days out. It's actually surprising how many models have this in the Western Gulf right now, 7 days out. Usually, it's much more spread out. Usually, it's like all over the place. I'm surprised how many have it in like one general 100-mile radius. Now, the ensembles, on the other hand, as I mentioned, like, the ensembles go crazy with this. They bring it all over the place. This is typical for ensembles, but again, notice most models here have it in the same exact area in parts of South Texas and Mexico, and then again, a few outliers going towards Louisiana and Mississippi. I don't think this is going towards those areas like Mississippi, Alabama, or Florida, but if it does for some reason go towards Louisiana, we could see some impacts there, maybe near Mississippi or Alabama. I just don't think they'd be that significant, so that's what I'm thinking right now. Long term. Has this ram slider loaded? Let's see. Here you go. That's a better view there of the hurricane. I have to zoom in. By the way, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. Again, we'll keep you posted with the latest during hurricane season. Thank you, Kelly, for the $10 super chat. Tropical depression is when the winds are less than 39 miles per hour, but there are tropical characteristics. This thing's still loading. All right, I'll wait for it to load again. And then a tropical storm is something that has sustained winds greater than that and is producing tropical storm impacts, but it more has to do with the wind speeds. It also has to do with if it actually has tropical impacts, you know, at least in the like what's happening live. Sometimes we have like for example, about a week ago, we had that storm that was not a tropical storm, but we had that invest right off the shore of Florida and Georgia. You guys might remember that, but that thing was completely sheared off. It didn't have really that many it didn't have enough tropical characteristics, and so tropical storms don't just get named if they have spin. That one had a lot of spin. It was a nice spinning low pressure system here just east of Georgia a few weeks back, but there wasn't enough convection, so they didn't call it a tropical storm. So a tropical storm needs to have actual characteristics to it. There's like a checklist basically, and that one didn't have enough convection. And what I mean by convection is when we see stuff like this, like big thunderstorm activity. It doesn't have to be this big, but there just has to be some level of thunderstorm activity that's a bit organized. The problem with that particular invest is that it was just so sheared off. Like the wind shear was killing that thing. This was the eye with it, for example, and then all the storm activity was sheared all the way down here to the south. Like there was nothing around the eye other than just some, you know, little bubbly cumulus clouds. It was not impressive at all. Thank you, Sherry, for the 199. What's the most useful to look at for tracking hurricanes? I mean, there's plenty of ways you can track them. I mean, Radar Omega has a pretty good setup. You can go to like tropical tidbits. That's what a lot of people do for hurricanes. So there's a couple. There's multiple. There's tons of ways. I don't recommend looking at TikTok, though. I'll say that. We don't need another Category 10 hurricane alert. Need dog for the 499. This is Radar Omega, what I'm using right now. And the link to download, if you want to download it, is at the very bottom of the description. You have to have a subscription to see the satellite imagery. It's kind of loading in now. It takes a while. Thank you, Mike, for the $5 super chat. Do you follow hurricanes? Maybe. Just maybe. Thank you, Dog, again. Just answered that. Thank you, Turner, for the $10 super chat. Yeah, I mean, we're kind of in the middle stages right now, both La Nina and El Nino. So, thank you, Fester, for the $10 super chat. There's a chance that we see a drunk caner. I wish this would load. Please just load. This imagery is so cool to see when it loads. It's not loading. Like, it's skipping so many frames. A drunk hurricane will be crazy, though. I mean, a drunk hurricane is when we have a hurricane that would literally just stall and, like, meander. So Dorian's a pretty good example of that, actually. Can we get some hurricane merch? We could. I don't know what kind of hurricane merch we would do. A drunk hurricane? We could do a drunk hurricane. Might be our next drop. I don't know what we would actually call that, though. Drunk hurricane or drunk... Like, I don't even know how we'd, like, say that. Drunk-a-cane? That doesn't sound good. Like, it would have to be something, like, that flows. I would just say drunk hurricane would be the way to name it. Drunk cane? Just sounds weird. Thank you, James, for the Venmo. Appreciate that. Be a crazy merch idea. By the way, I think it's pinned down below, but we have our Drunk NATO merch out. You can check it out. Shopmaxvelocity.net. Highly recommend you check it out. It's almost fully loaded now, I think. Oh, nope, never mind. Hey, DK for the $4.99. What conditions would need to happen for Beryl to go towards Mississippi and Alabama? There would have to be a lot of wobbling. one, and then two, there would also have to be that ridge that literally pulls that thing, and the ridge would have to be really strong. If the ridge is strong, then it could go that direction. It still would take a lot though, because like this hurricane is moving so fast. It's going 20 miles per hour. It's forecasted to continue to go about that fast for the next several days. It's not going to slow down much. So as long as it continues to go 20 miles per hour, I don't see this going towards like Mississippi or Alabama. I think if it did impact those areas, the landfall would be in like southern Louisiana. Again, even if that happens, it would have to be like it's just an outlier. Okay, that's the easiest way to put it. Like every model, like the only models that show go towards Louisiana right now are outliers, which is still a possibility, but it would take a really strong ridge for that to happen. Now I think we'll have more clarity on this entire situation in like 2 days. Maybe even sooner, but probably in about 2 days or so, we'll have more clarity on if it will go towards the United States, and if it does, where it goes. Because I just feel like right now we're getting close to the peak of this hurricane, and by the time it gets closer to the Lesser Antilles, if it continues to rapidly intensify, it could change directions a little bit, might wobble a little bit, and then from there, what will actually happen? Like things could change, so it's too early to tell. I think once it gets here to somewhere south of San Juan, we'll know more. So I wouldn't be super concerned again if you're in Louisiana or Texas or even Florida or any of those states. Florida especially, I would not be concerned. I don't think this is going that direction unless something majorly changes. But once again, it's just too early to tell at this point if it's actually going to directly impact those areas. I think out of any states, though, Texas would be the one that gets impacted by this. That's what I'm thinking at this point. This view is so crazy. I love 3D views of this stuff. Tornado in Canada? I mean, there are tornado warnings. I don't think there's anything confirmed, is there? I don't think anything's confirmed on this. I think it's just a normal tornado warning. I mean, just seek shelter. I mean, we don't really cover Canada. We don't have live views really up here either. There's not really, I don't know. It's not an area that we usually cover. Unless there's something major happening. I mean, right now it just looks like weak rotation. Maybe a small little tightening there. I don't know. It doesn't look too bad right now, in my opinion. It didn't look that bad the last time I looked when somebody mentioned it. Any tornadoes possible in Virginia Beach overnight? I don't think so. This is the day one outlook. I don't know what they did to the risk. Let me check. There's a small tornado risk. I mean, honestly, we haven't seen a single tornado today. It would shock me if we got a tornado in that part even of the country tonight. I really doubt it. There's a live radar right now. We got like a few storms out there. Just nothing crazy here. The next round of storms would be out of back here near Richmond. I don't think this is going to be really tornadic. I think it'll just be mostly rain if you're near Virginia Beach. So I would say probably not. Have ways to receive alerts, but it should not be something you're concerned about tonight. By the way, I have vowed that I'm not having another cheese curd until after this hurricane is done. So, for those that are not in the loop about our cheese curd situation, every time I go to Culver's and get cheese curds, something bad happens either the day of or the next day. Last time I had Culver's was about 2 weeks ago, or maybe a week ago. I can't remember when the Wisconsin outbreak happened, but we end up the next day after Culver's, we had 4 large tornadoes in Wisconsin. It was not in the forecast. I had Culver's last night for the first time in 2 weeks, and this was a Category 1 hurricane, and it was forecasted to become like a Category 3 last night. All of a sudden, when I woke up this morning at like lunchtime, it was up to a Category 4 hurricane. So I don't know what to tell you guys, but like there's a legitimate, like there's something happening. I don't know what it is, but I think it has to do with Culver's and cheese curds. I don't know why. It's actually whack. But I've officially made a post here on Twitter. There you go. There's the proof. I mean, I feel like it's a curse, like low-key. It's a crazy curse, but it's a curse. It's a crazy curse. Don't be superstitious. I mean, it's happened more than those 2 times. Those are the only ones that I can actually recall. We've had like culvert, like even during like tornado outbreaks, like the high risk days and stuff like that we had in May, like I would DoorDash culvers and we had nothing going on, so I'd DoorDash it, and then once it got delivered, the weather would just get worse. Like it just got worse, and it was like when we were expecting the peak of severe weather was like just before I ordered culvers on those days. So like I don't know what to tell you, but it's weird. How much is Radar Omega? The base app is $8.99, and then they have subscriptions that range from like $5 up to like I think 11 or 10. Thank you, Christian, for the $5 super chat. I have a trip planned to Cancun on Friday for vacation. I'm thinking about maybe canceling it. What Friday? What day is the 5th? Isn't that Thursday? Oh, that's Wednesday. Wait, no, that's not. That is Friday. So you get there Friday? That's a tough one. I don't like these kind of questions. I don't like being responsible for people canceling their trips. I mean, if I were you, if I was in your shoes, I'll do it Dave Ramsey style here. If I was in your shoes, I mean, I don't know. It's so close. That's the problem. I mean, if you're on like Friday night, you'd just be getting rain for the most part. I hate answering these questions. I get them asked like a lot too. It's like, do you want to let me ruin your fun if I say you need to cancel your trip? Let me just let me ruin your fun. Let's check the European model real quick, and let me look at the timing of this. It's like I'm responsible here for ruining somebody's vacation. That's literally what that is. Hot potato. It's like nobody can decide. I have to decide for them. All right, here's what it looks like on the European model. So this one looks like Thursday night. So again, landfall will be expected Friday. I mean, if you're going like Friday afternoon or evening, if that's when you fly in, I don't think it's gonna be that bad. Like personally, if that's the case, I would be fine with going. But if you're going like in the very early morning or something, like if it was me, I would cancel. But like I don't know, it's only gonna be there until Friday night. I mean, it's not gonna be stationary. At least that's what we think is gonna happen. We don't think it's gonna be stationary there. We think it's gonna go right over the Yucatan, or it's gonna go north of you. Worst case scenario, it goes just off to the north of you. But if it makes landfall in the Yucatan early Friday morning, it won't be that slow. It's expected to go pretty quickly to the west. So again, I don't know. I do not like those questions. But if I were in your shoes, depending on when you're flying in, I think that's going to matter more. I mean, the GFS model has this making landfall Friday morning as a pretty, weak tropical storm. It's possible that it really weakens quickly, but granted, the GFS model also doesn't really account for how strong it is right now. So, I don't know. You might, if you can wait a couple days too, I would wait too. If you can. If you can't wait, then you got to probably make a decision. But I don't like those questions. It's either I ruin your fun or I don't. Thank you, Alicia, for the $9.99. Hello from Orlando. Love the channel. Appreciate you tuning in. Hey, Talon, for the 1-month membership. Do hurricanes ever have hail? Not that I mean, I've never seen hail come out of hurricanes. Personally, it's very rare. I've never seen that happen though. I mean, I bet it's not impossible, especially with the outer bands, but like the inner bands, I've never seen hail. Thank you also, Hart, for becoming a 1-month member. It's gonna hit North Texas. I highly doubt it. If it does hit North Texas, it would just be rain, and that would be... I mean, we're gonna get some activity, I think, in Texas, like, next week. So we could get some, like, moisture out of it, and that could end up bleeding, to some sort of... at least some level of, rain. But, like, I don't think we're gonna get any sort of major impacts in North Texas by any means. Thank you, Kelly, for the $5 super chat. T-shirts that say Curdnado or Curd King, please. Curdnado was an idea that we had, but I'm not sure if we're doing that yet. Why has the Eastern Pacific been so quiet? Well, I have to say, I don't know why the Atlantic... I mean, I know why the Atlantic Ocean's been so active, but Pacific Ocean doesn't always ramp up until sometimes, like, in July. It varies year by year, but a lot of it just has to do with El Nino and La Nina. That overall general pattern has a lot to do with what we see. What is a curd? A cheese curd. Update tomorrow, Midwest storms. Midwest isn't going to see storms tomorrow. Or at least if you do, they're not going to be significant. This is tomorrow in the Central Plains. This is in Nebraska. We'll probably be live tomorrow, so if you're new to the channel, again, subscribe. We'll be probably live tomorrow for this tornado risk, hail risk, and wind threat across parts of Nebraska. Main concern will be right along I-80. It'll be predominantly linear, but any storms that can be discrete out in front of that line could produce a strong tornado, or even near the line could still produce a strong tornado. It's a low risk, but it definitely exists. Let me check the Midwest real quick. I don't think the Midwest is supposed to see anything. Yeah, Midwest won't see storms tomorrow, but Tuesday you probably will. It's currently a slight risk, but I wouldn't rule out a hatch tornado risk. I just don't feel like it will, because of how localized it'll probably end up being if we do see a strong tornado. It reminds me a lot of the days that we've seen recently that have ended up having like 5% tornado risks, and sometimes we get a strong tornado. Like a 5% hatched risk for tornadoes would be fantastic if they ever invent those, which I know they're doing testing on that right now, but whenever those come out, that'd be great, because to be honest with you, like, this is a situation where I think that would be feasible to have a 5% hatched risk for tornadoes, because a strong tornado is definitely a possibility. Hello from North Platte, Nebraska. I guess we'll see you here tomorrow. I guess so. It looks like a live stream is going to be needed tomorrow. And then Tuesday, I don't know about Tuesday yet. I don't feel like Wednesday and Thursday are going to be that crazy. Like, I'm supposed to, or whatever day, what's today? Sunday? Yeah, so like Wednesday, Thursday, I just don't feel like they're going to be that crazy. I've been looking at the computer models. They kind of mentioned that we could get some sort of elevated severe weather risk. I just don't see it right now, at least for Wednesday or Thursday. This is the future radar beyond Wednesday, or even beyond Tuesday, sorry. So Wednesday, we're probably going to get another low pressure system that enters into the central and northern plains. Some severe weather would come out of that. And then by the time we go into Thursday, some more storms, but it's just a large area. Not really anything that looks super organized, but probably something in the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. I mean, as of right now, I'm not planning on being here for either one of those days if we actually see something. So, I don't know. I don't really know yet. I didn't really see really much though for those 2 days. Let me look at the where is it? They actually have hodographs on the European model. Kind of forgot about that. Yeah, tomorrow's environment is definitely gonna be favorable for tornadoes. At least if any storms do stay discrete, it'll be favorable for tornadoes. Yeah, like Wednesday, I don't see it being a tornado day. Tuesday could be, by the way. Tuesday could go hatched. We could get an enhanced risk on Tuesday. Wednesday, Thursday, though, I don't know. They look pretty mid to me. They don't look like big tornado days by any means. If we do see tornadoes, it'll be a pretty localized risk. I'm not going to give a chance for a strong tornado, like a probability percentage, but it is going to be possible west of Lincoln, Nebraska tomorrow. Anywhere near that I-80 stretch, it'll be possible if any storms do develop. And again, it's going to be an isolated risk. It's not going to be like a widespread, 29 supercells initiate at the same time sort of thing. It would be like 1 or 2 at the most. Like, it would be very minimal. Maybe 3, but it's going to be a very isolated event. See that hole next to the eye of the hurricane? Which one were we talking about? I was on 3D view, so it looked kind of weird. How about that? That's just a thunderstorm blowing up. Need to refresh this real quick. All right. Thank you, Riley, for the $49.99 super chat. Appreciate your generosity. You advise how high in the atmosphere Beryl is? Are you talking about like pressure? Is that what we're talking about? Right now the pressure is like, I think 958. And let me real quickly check if the new observations came in. They have hurricane hunters in the hurricane right now. It's another view of the hurricane on Tropical Tidbits. I'm trying to pull up the aircraft recon. They have people in the storm right now. It's right now at 958 millibars as of about 30 minutes ago. They have another update coming out at 11 p.m. tonight. That's the next update. They actually flew into the eye twice. This is interesting data. They just came out with this. They actually flew into the hurricane twice. So the first time they flew in, the pressure was actually lower. The second time, I'm not sure if they went to the right spot, but it was actually a bit higher. So that little wobble that we're seeing, it actually could be intensifying a little, or it could be actually like weakening a little bit. Maybe intensifying after that. But if you're talking about pressure, it's right now at 958 millibars. I don't think we have below the waterline graphics. I don't think we do. I don't know how you'd actually measure that unless you like drop something into the hurricane. I know somebody that is actually currently working on a project where they're going to be dropping drones into hurricanes, which is going to be insane. Like, I personally know somebody that's going to be doing that. They've actually been testing it with like some smaller tropical storms and such. Maximum hurricane atmospheric height. There's like 16 questions. Let me figure that out real quick. I don't know the exact height. I don't usually talk about that stuff. But let me look. See what I can find for you. I appreciate your generosity. Put some words in the chat for Riley. The $50 super chat. Find what the atmospheric height is. You have W Riz. I have no Riz at all. 0 Riz exists in my life. Thank you. The atmospheric height is actually really high on this. We can't see echo tops or anything like that on this, but like it's probably upwards of about 50,000 feet. It might even be a bit higher. We don't know 3 days from now. We definitely know 3 days from now. 3 days from now, it's going to be like south of Haiti and the Dominican Republic. I mean, the atmospheric height is probably about 50 to 60,000 feet. It's definitely up there. There isn't really, I mean, the amount of moisture that goes from the surface all the way up into the tropopause there's a lot. It's literally just a straight up moist line. There's so much moisture. Category 4 hurricanes usually are pretty tall when it comes to the cloud height. And we have legitimate thunderstorms in here now. Like, we have lightning actually happening. And lightning is a sign of that being a stronger hurricane. We don't have lightning usually with weaker hurricanes at all. I fear for South Texas. Yeah, again, we'll see. We'll see what happens in South Texas. I don't know if we're going to see landfall there, but even if we don't, we could still see some impacts there. It's going to depend, again, on a lot what happens here in the Yucatan. And if it goes to the north of the Yucatan, I think it's going to be way worse for the United States. If it makes landfall in the Yucatan, I think the impacts will be much lesser than what they could be. The cone of uncertainty, I mean, it only gives you an idea of, like, where the eye will go. But, like, again, if in the rare case, like 20% chance that it goes up into the Gulf without actually making landfall near, like, Cancun, bad things could happen. Hopefully that does not happen, but again, it's still possible. Thank you, Abraham, for the $4.99. Thank you, Sherry, for the $1.99. You need to be a subscriber on the app. There are certain subscriptions that you can get to see satellite imagery and such. Tropical data and stuff like that is something that you have to get with a subscription on the app. It doesn't just come with a base app. Landfall could happen in Cancun, but again, it could happen legitimately anywhere in this cone of uncertainty. So it could happen near Belize, it could happen near Cancun, it might not make landfall at all in the Yucatan. Again, it could go anywhere in the cone of uncertainty. That is why they call it the cone of uncertainty. It could go anywhere in the cone. Most of the time, the eye, like almost 90% of the time, it stays within the cone of uncertainty when it comes to the eye of the storm. Not the actual storm itself, but the eye. With that said, there's still a very low chance it goes outside of this, but I don't think it will. Unless something really majorly changes in the next, like, 24 hours. My family is going to Cayman this Friday. Where's Cayman? I've heard of it. I don't know where Cayman is, though. Cayman Islands. On Friday? I mean, the wave heights will probably still be up there on Friday for the Cayman Islands. Actually, I've been here. The Cayman Islands, the wave height, I think I was here last year or this year. When did I go on that cruise? I think I was actually, I think we went to the Cayman Islands in December. But Cayman Islands, I mean, you're going to see impact, like this area will see impacts Thursday, and eventually the hurricane will move inland as we go into Friday morning across the Yucatan, or it'll go this direction. The only thing that I would expect that would be left out of this would be storm surge, and as well as potentially still some leftover flooding. I mean, the wind will be dying down. It won't be really raining as much, but the wind will probably at least still be strong enough to the point where we'll continue to have southerly and southwesterly winds pulling water from that direction to the northeast. And again, just kind of continuing to at least leave some storm surge near Georgetown. So that's what I'm thinking right now. But as of right now, for those that are in the Lesser Antilles, we are approximately, now again, landfall may or may not happen, depending on where this actually goes, because there is a chance that landfall does not happen if it goes in between some islands here. But landfall is expected to happen within the next, it's going to happen probably in the next, like, it's going to happen probably in about 13 hours, 12 hours or so. So we're actually getting pretty close to landfall. The first of probably at least 2 or 3 landfalls in the Atlantic Ocean. Thank you, Hart, for the $9.99. How bad will this be for Grenada? I do not recall Ivan. I'm not really a history person. I mean, I like history, but I don't really, like, I'm not super knowledgeable about history. I don't know if this will be worse. What I do know, though, is that we are going to have significant storm surge for sure in that area. I mean, like, anywhere that's within this proximity, I'm not sure what this island is, but basically from about St. Lucia and southwards, that is where the worst of the impacts will be felt, and we're going to have significant storm surge and really high winds. Now, the flooding threat will be there when it comes to just pure rain leading to flooding. Like, that will be a threat, but it's not the main concern. This is not a slow-moving hurricane. It's pretty fast at about 20 miles per hour, and as long as it does continue to maintain its speed at about 20 miles per hour, I do not see this particular hurricane being something where it dumps like 40 inches of rain, for example. So I don't know how much rain that dumped, but that's like the one thing you can probably compare and contrast between the two. I would say for a category 3 versus a category 4 hurricane, storm surge will be pretty similar. If not, this will be a bit worse. And the same thing goes for the wind. It's going to be a bit worse, but landfall right now is likely going to be near St. George's and Hillsborough. So it might happen up here near like Port Elizabeth or like Kingstown and St. Vincent, but let's see, wait and see. But Grenada is probably going to be hit pretty hard by this. The worst of this eye wall is basically going to be really on the east side, but also even on the south side too, and probably on the north side and the west side. Basically the entire eye wall, but east side's probably going to be the worst of the impacts. Do we have radars out here? I didn't even check. I don't think we have radar sites out here. I think there's a radar in Puerto Rico. I don't even know if there's actual radar sites out here, like reflectivity. I don't think we do. I think the only one's Puerto Rico. I kind of wish we had radar sites out here that we could look at. It's category 4, top left of your screen. Category 4 hurricane. It's also in the title. It's also in the thumbnail. It's everywhere. Sustained winds at 130 miles per hour right now. Where is satellite? All right, we're gonna go back to satellite here. All right. What I think the highest tornado risk is for Tuesday? Probably southern Iowa and northern Missouri. And that's literally in the radar hole, which is very unfortunate. We'll talk more about the threat. So the plan right now, I don't know what we're doing for a video yet tomorrow. We might do a video on Beryl, or we might do a video on the severe weather, like for the main topic. I'm not sure which one we're gonna do, because I was gonna do one or the other. It'll depend on the risk of severe weather. If we have a higher risk for severe weather, like an enhanced risk, we'll probably have a severe weather video. If the risk is still slight, we'll probably end up doing a Hurricane Idalia update video. So that is currently the plan. I don't know which one we're going to do yet, but we'll see, basically, is what I'm saying, because I don't really know. Place with no radar coverage. Yes, that's what that is. We have a radar hole in northern Missouri and southern Iowa, and unfortunately it's in a radar hole, which means that there's very minimal radar coverage. It's poor radar coverage, at least. I mean, there's radar coverage, it's just poor. It's not going to be very helpful, unfortunately. Friendly reminder, if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, like the stream. If you want to support the page above and beyond, you can become a member with the join button down below. Highly recommend you check out our shopmaxvelocity.net store as well, as we do have Drunk NATO merch and other stuff out. We might even be releasing some sort of Hurricane merch in the future. Links in the chat. It's also down below. Idalia? I meant Beryl. Did I say Idalia? Where did I get Idalia from? They're doing a Idalia update. Wow, that's literally what I said. I didn't even realize I said that. That's crazy. My haircut is cool. I got this haircut like 4 weeks ago. Yes, we're gonna do a Hurricane Idalia update from last year. We're gonna do a little post update. we're gonna do a quick little update on that tomorrow. Don't worry. We'll talk about how that storm in the past is coming back. How we get from B to I have no clue. I don't know where that even came from. It's pretty crazy. The Great Clips Classic Cut. This is not a Great Clips haircut. The last time I got a Great Clips haircut was like forever ago. It was at least 2 years ago, I think, since I had my last one there. I think we'll see a Category 5. If it rapidly intensifies tonight, I don't see why it can't get there. I think it's a long shot, because it's not going to continue to strengthen from that much longer. Again, it's going to strengthen for the next 12 to 24 hours, and then after that, it starts to weaken as it goes into the Caribbean. Got a little bit more wind shear. Some of that Saharan dust might kind of get into the hurricane a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be a major, game changer, for example, here. So I would say more than anything, this will more than likely, again, still stay as a Category 4 hurricane. I would give it a 10% chance it gets to a Category 5. If I eat cheese curds tonight from Culver's, I think it'll go to a Category 5. So we're not going to eat cheese curds tonight. Thank you, Jason, for the $1.99. This is a hurricane. Yes. If you couldn't tell, this is a hurricane. This is what we're talking about. We're just kind of answering questions. If you have any questions, let me know in the chat. Just kind of chatting. I have to go in a little bit, but it probably won't be for like another half an hour, I think. Yeah, still probably about a half an hour away. So we'll be here probably until like 10:30-ish. That's like 45 minutes. Did I miss the gritty? We haven't done a gritty at all today. I will do a gritty, though, if we get 25 members. I don't know why we always do member goals for it, but... Are there tornadoes in and around a hurricane? Yeah, I mean, again, we always have... Almost always, when we have hurricanes making landfall in the United States, there is some sort of risk for tornadoes. Now, out of this one, we don't know if there will be one. Because, again, where it makes landfall, it's going to depend exactly on, where it makes landfall more than anything. But if it makes landfall in Mexico, like, the tornado risk could be predominantly in, like, southern Texas. If it makes landfall back over in southern Louisiana, the tornado risk could be predominantly over here in Louisiana and, like, Mississippi. It makes landfall in Florida, which I don't think it will, but if it made landfall in Florida, the tornado risk could be over here, maybe even up here a little bit, too. It just depends on the landfall area. Now, right now, there are probably water spouts happening offshore out of this hurricane. Probably on the eastern side of this hurricane is where we have water spouts happening right now. So there's at least that. And again, a water spout is basically a tornado just over water. So we do have that happening. How many members are we at? We're at 7. A Category 5 hurricane are sustained winds above 156, or at or above 156. Right now, the peak that it's forecasted to get to is 145, which would be at the 2 a.m. advisory is when they think it'll happen. And then as it gets past the Lesser Antilles, it's forecasted to downgrade by 5 miles per hour. And again, the difference between this being a Category 4 and 5 is so minimal. A Category 4 is already going to be catastrophic. If this gets to a Category 5, it's not going to make much of a difference unless it went 40 plus miles per hour and greater. If it goes from 130 to 145 or 150, it's a difference, but it's not a major difference. Like, you know, Dahlia, for example, I think it briefly became a Category 4, but again, it doesn't really make much of a difference. 5 miles per hour does not make that much of a difference in general. So it's like saying, I don't know, if you have, I mean, if you're baking some cookies, I don't know what you even use to bake cookies, but if you have 100 chocolate chips that you need for the recipe, and all of a sudden you put 110 in there, it's not going to make much of a difference. So there you go. There's your chocolate chip analogy. Category 5 is stronger than Category 4. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could probably make you a chart on here, or I actually could just show you a chart of what they actually mean. Give me 1 second. I'll just find a chart and show you. I don't actually know where the government intensification thing is. Yeah, I don't know where they actually have that on here. They do. See if I can find it. And no, there's no such thing as a Category 6 hurricane. Just letting you know. Alright, so a category... So just to start, tropical depression. I'll just kind of draw it out on here. Let's do it over a little bit of open water so you don't have to see this hurricane in it. So tropical depression, because I can't find an actual graphic for this for some reason. There's probably one somewhere. Tropical depression less than 38 miles per hour. A tropical storm is 39 to 73. And no, as a meteorology student, we have never had to actually memorize these, which is kind of crazy. Category 1 is 74 to 95. Which most of this is just common knowledge. Category 2 is 96 to 110. And then Category 3 is 111 to 129, I believe. Yeah, 111 to 129. And then anything after that, Category 4 is 130 to 156. And again, this is all in miles per hour. And then a Category 5 would be greater than 157, actually. So that's 157 or greater for a Category 5. No, there's no Category 6 hurricanes. There's no Category 7 hurricanes. If you've learned that from TikTok, that does not exist. I bet at least 50 of you have probably seen a TikTok related to a Category 6 or 7 hurricane. Okay. Hey, Zeus, for becoming a minimum velocity member. Welcome to the Velocities, or welcome back. Did you watch Hurricane Dorian? Yeah, I mean, I watched it back in 2019. I didn't live in Florida when that happened, so I didn't really, I didn't watch it. I didn't, pay attention every single second, but I did watch it. I actually forecasted it back in 2019 on my Facebook page when we had that, which we still have that, but, that's where I began weather forecasting. That was one of the biggest events that I covered initially. Hurricane Laura was another one. There's a couple. Thank you, David, for becoming a maximum velocity member. Appreciate that. We're actually on TikTok, but we just usually re-upload our videos on there from YouTube. We don't do anything crazy on TikTok. You really can't combat the level of misinformation on TikTok. It is absurd how much misinformation's on there. Thank you, Bree, for the $4.99. Yes, there was that Category 7 hurricane in Kansas a few weeks ago. I actually remember that. That was an interesting event. I remember that hurricane. I remember forecasting it. I actually remember having a piece of paper and drawing the map of the United States. and I would draw Florida, and I would draw different scenarios of what Hurricane Dorian would do. I actually remember doing that back in 2019. I don't know if I have any of those pieces of paper anymore, but that was a pretty cool time. Pretty cool. As a reminder, if you're just tuning in and you need some information about Hurricane Beryl and what it's going to be doing as it barrels off to the west, I do really encourage you to just go back to the very first minute of this live stream, because we talk in detail about the forecast. And so I definitely recommend you checking out that. And again, we're just kind of answering questions. So if you have any questions about this in particular, feel free to let me know in the chat. Is this hurricane, or is the eye shrinking? I don't think so. Let's do the last 30 frames here. It wobbled a little bit. I mean, it might be like a smidge smaller, but it's not much. Like, it's minimally smaller, if that. We can do a quick measurement here. Do it from west to east here. That's not the right thing. So west to east on the eye, about 18 miles wide. That's a sizable eye. So that's as of a little while ago. So it's 18 miles west to east. Problem is, it's wobbling right now a little bit, so it's actually going to be it's about 16 miles right now. If you go north to south, it's 12 miles right now. And if we go back in time to this point where we just measured, instead of 12 miles is about 18 miles. So it's actually shrunk by about 30-ish%, 35%. What will be interesting to see, I don't know if we'll still be live for the 11 p.m. update, but like the 11 p.m. update's really the next big thing. They'll probably have some new data in terms of what this hurricane's doing. They had the 8 p.m. update, which was 2 hours ago. The next one's at 11 p.m. After 11 p.m., there's not really much to talk about until tomorrow morning, because, you know, it's going to be kind of doing its thing, making landfall and whatnot. But let me see if they have any new data on the Tropical Tidbits website about this. Hey, David, for the $5 super chat. Thank you, Hart, for the $9.99. I'll read your message in a second. Still head to Texas? I think this will go towards Texas. It's just a matter of what the impacts will be. It's still very unknown, because we are still well over 5 days out from this impacting Texas. We're almost a week out. So it is very unknown what will actually happen in Texas. Okay, let's see. Again, they got aircraft going through the eye of Hurricane Beryl right now. I'm just trying to see if we have any new data on this. Like, anything that jumps out to me. Was in there for quite a while. Problem is, you can't read the wind barbs, and I'm trying to translate the raw data file to the actual wind, which is a little bit tricky, because you have to convert stuff. And the next update from the National Hurricane Center will be in exactly an hour. Probably actually sooner. It might be a bit sooner. Sometimes they have them early. Hurricane Beryl is actually trending on Twitter right now. A crazy world. Thank you, XY, for the $10 super chat. I know most weather enthusiasts typically have a tornado and or hurricane that interests them most. What are yours? I mean, I would say the most, I mean, if you're talking about just fascinating in general, I mean, the Joplin tornado was probably the one that resonates with me the most. That was, or not resonates with me, but like, you know, that's the one I remember the most, and that's the one that I watched on the Weather Channel as it happened. That's probably going to be like the one that I don't know, just historically, that's the one that I really was most attracted to when I was getting interested in weather. Hurricane wise, I don't know if I really had a hurricane. I mean, you could probably say Ian. That was pretty recent. I mean, we covered it and stuff like that. That was pretty recent. Like, historically, I think the one hurricane will be Hurricane Sandy, actually, that hit New England in the Northeast. This is from the CIRA. Look at that eye. That's from a little while ago. That's crazy. It's on the Go 16 satellite, on the visible satellite. It's band 2, if you're curious. It's from a little while ago. Crazy eye looking into it. I like your glasses. Thank you. Appreciate that. Is it coming towards Texas? Again, this will be on track for Texas down the road. It's just, again, a matter of will it actually impact Texas. We'll have to wait and see. It's very possible. How wide is the eye? We just checked a second ago. It's approximately, I think, 12 miles north and south and about 16 miles west and east. Previously, so I'll just kind of draw it here, but right now it's about 12 miles versus 16 miles. Previously, it was about 18 miles north and south, and I think about 18 miles west and east. It was actually pretty symmetrical. Now it's a bit more elongated, just by a little bit west to east. It's been wobbling a little bit. Is this going to be like Hurricane Harvey? I highly doubt it, but again, we don't really know. I'm trying to tell you guys this because we really don't. I mean, any hype that you see about this hitting Texas or Louisiana right now, we don't know if it's actually going to hit those areas. Nobody does. If somebody says, oh, it's definitely going to hit Texas, like, we don't know that. It's too hard to tell at this point. Like, I personally, again, I think it's going to make landfall somewhere either in Mexico, like northern Mexico, or in southern Texas for its third landfall. Because again, Yucatan would be the second landfall, which is pretty likely. And then the Lesser Antilles, which would be the first landfall. That's if it makes landfall tomorrow morning, which we don't even know if that's going to happen, because it's just the Lesser Antilles. It could go in between the islands, if you know what I mean. But I personally think it'll make landfall in South Texas or northern Mexico. It could make landfall back over in like southern Louisiana, for example. Again, I kind of doubt it, but it's still a possibility if the ridge is strong enough. If it can pull this hurricane off to the north, that is a possibility as well. I am still leaning, though, towards this going in this direction here. So somewhere into southern Texas or northern Mexico. But we've seen this story before with other hurricanes. Like, sometimes it looks like it's going to go this way or whatever way. Like, let's just say west, for example, with the current track. Like, it looks like it's going to go this way, but it ends up changing direction because of either rapid intensification or it becomes disorganized and then reorganizes in a different spot, and then just things change. It speeds up, slows down. There's just so many factors that can change in this period here near the Yucatan. Like, a lot of things can change there. There could be some changes with the intensification tonight too, back over in the Lesser Antilles, but again, we really, again, just don't know what we're going to see tonight. Like, this could go a little bit further north or south as well, but what hurricane do you think had the most impressive structure from space? That is a good question. I like I mean, Dorian is one of the ones that I remember the most. Ian, I saw Ian too. I didn't really think that was super crazy, but it was crazy. But Dorian and Ian were probably the top two. Even Laura was pretty crazy. Hurricane Laura in Louisiana. That was pretty crazy too. Florida could get hit, but like the chances are 0.00001%. Like, it's extraordinarily low. It would have to take literally, again, a ridge that is up here to move east by a lot for this thing to turn into Florida. Like, it would take a massive swing for that to happen, and I highly doubt that's happening. Thank you, Tammy, for becoming a member, and welcome to the Velocities. What's the difference between a cyclone and a hurricane? I mean, a tropical cyclone, is that what we're talking about? It's just kind of like a broad term. A hurricane's like category 1 through 5. A tornado vortex signature in Wyoming? I mean, we're really not covering tornadoes. I'll check real quick. I don't really... Are you talking about Cheyenne? Oh, wow. Okay, that's actually 80-mile-per-hour winds for Cheyenne right now. Wow, that is quite the storm. That's actually developed a crazy hook on this thing. I mean, there isn't really a whole lot of rotation here. You guys see this? That is crazy. That hook and inflow is crazy. I mean, this is outflow driven, so I don't feel like it's going to produce unless it gets latched to the outflow, but that's a massive hook. The last time I saw a hook echo this far north and south was like North Dakota, and that was like 2 years ago when we did one of these live streams. Not like this, but like a different one. That actually looks crazy. It's a destructive storm with winds upwards of 80 miles per hour. Let's see if we have any traffic cams here. I'm curious if we can actually see this. It's a crazy storm. There's a tornado possible label on it. Like, I don't... this reminds me, too, of that one we had near San Antonio last month, I think it was. And that, honestly, looked very similar. It was outflow-driven for the most part, and it didn't actually produce anything. So, like, I don't know if we're actually going to... Wow. That's the storm. That's a crazy camera, too. It's crazy that you can see that much. Zoom in a little bit there. A little glass reflection. Wow. Trying to see if we have any others here. This is a crazy storm. I mean, again, rotation... I don't think this is going to produce a tornado. I think it's just going to be wind. This reminds me of a few different storms. It reminds me from one of North Dakota a few years back. You guys might not remember it, but there was one near Temple, Texas, probably about a month ago, if you're watching our live streams then. This actually looks similar to that. It was just a big surge of wind. We had a bit of rotation. It was near the outflow and ended up producing a brief tornado. Like, we could see something like that. It also reminds me of the one we had near San Antonio that produced like 4-inch hail, I think it was. So there's also a rainbow. There's that. Got a little rainbow right there. Interesting, though. Definitely interesting. But there's nothing on the ground right now. Just, again, mostly a surge of wind right now going southeast. Alright, let's go back to satellite again. Clean IR. We'll stay here for now. If something intensifies out of that, we'll keep a close eye on it. But it is definitely a crazy looking storm. "24-hour hurricane stream?" We're not doing a 24-hour stream for this. I mean, if we did that, it would have to low-key be like, you know, there's no way we would do that. I mean, we would have to like have live cams. We'd have to have like, you know, storm chasers on these islands like that. I don't know if they would be out there. Like, I know there's people out there, but like, we would need a full-blown operation for that to happen. But right now, really the biggest thing will be the 11 p.m. update, which is in like 50 minutes. So we'll see if anything changes there. I'm not sure if we'll be live till then, but we'll see. I mean, if this is making landfall in like the United States, for example, we would consider something like that. That's 24 hours long. But even then, I don't feel like it would have to be like, I don't think it's necessary to have something that long, in my opinion. With the hurricane weaken in the Gulf, again, in the Gulf of Mexico in particular, we've seen it, you know, again, hurricane after hurricane, we've seen multiple hurricanes do this, where if the hurricane meanders in the Gulf for long enough, it actually intensifies. It's going to depend on a few things. It'll depend on the wind shear and how strong it is. We, again, don't really know how strong it'll be. It's just too far out. And it'll also depend on if it goes just through the Caribbean Sea into the Gulf and doesn't actually go through the Yucatan Peninsula. If it goes through the Caribbean Sea into the Gulf, and more than likely, this is going to end up just strengthening. It's going to have a very favorable environment. But if it goes over the Yucatan Peninsula, it's more than likely going to start to, you know, weaken at least a little bit. And then once it goes back into the Gulf, if it stays there long enough, it could really quickly intensify. But if it goes really fast, like it currently is, it would probably not have much time to intensify. And it would just crash into like Texas or Mexico. So a lot of scenarios still with being this far out from this making any sort of impact to the United States. Still very far out at this point. Hey, Damien, for the $2 super chat. How's it going? Golf is real hot. the entire ocean is hot. Let me look at the water temp map. I mean, everything's above 80 pretty much everywhere. Show you the water temperatures. Like, it's just so favorable everywhere. Like, this is the the water temperatures that we have right now are water temperatures that you would usually see in the month of August. Like, that is how warm it is right now. Or not even maybe August, maybe like late July, but definitely close to August at least. Like, these are the water temperatures right now. Like, where this hurricane is, it's in the mid 80s. Gulf of Mexico is all in the mid to upper 80s. It's absurd. Even like the central Atlantic Ocean over here, like, we had areas over here that are in the, you know, at least low 80s. All you really need is for it to be 80 degrees in the Atlantic Ocean for there to be something out there. So it's crazy favorable right now. Water temperatures are just the icing on the cake really right now. I mean, like, again, look, it's everywhere is in the 80s. I don't see a single spot that's in the 70s. Usually we would at least have something in the low, like at least in the upper 70s somewhere. Not a single temperature reading is anywhere below 80 degrees. Doesn't happen usually in the end of June. We usually have a lot more areas than that. Yeah, the Gulf Stream also showed up nicely on there too. Yeah, that little feature. I already closed up the tab, but... Can we see strong tornadoes tomorrow in Nebraska? Yes, we could. Again, I'll have a video on that. I'll have at least some sort of video on that tomorrow. Tomorrow's video, again, depending on the risk level, it could be more focused towards the severe weather. It also could be more focused towards Hurricane Beryl. Thank you, Space, for becoming a 1-month member. Yes, my light is purple today. It just kind of blends more with the overlay. Am I going to make a bloopers video someday soon? I mean, I've had no time. We've been live every single day for the last 11 days, and we've been live we've been live so much. That's the problem. I've had no time to focus on that stuff. Can you show live cams of any islands being impacted? I don't know. I really don't. I don't even know what islands have live cameras. Like, some of them are privately owned, which you can't usually use those unless you get, like, licensing. So, I'm not 100% sure. Even then, I don't think we will be covering this live tomorrow. Because we're going to be probably live for the severe weather threat. So, it's at least the current thinking. Unless something changes tomorrow. We have live cams in Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, even if we did have any cameras, St. George's Railfan, do they have a Railfan there? Or does Virtual Railfan have one? I don't feel like they do. I'll check real quick, though. Oh yeah, they have buoy cameras. I forgot about that. Actually, let's look at that. I mean, the problem is it's nighttime, so you really can't see anything. But let me look. I forgot they have buoy cameras on here. I don't even know where buoy cameras would be. Marine tools? Buoys, there we go. Alright. Yeah, they have a few buoys on here. I kind of forgot about that. But there's none that are really near this. It's pitch black, so you're not going to be able to see anything anyways. That's the photo, by the way. Right there in the middle. You cannot see a single thing. Couple more. There's a lot of buoys up near Puerto Rico. Does St. George's even have a railroad? I would be shocked. I mean, it's a really tiny island. I mean, maybe they do. They have a mountain there, so maybe. It's not that small when you think about it. They don't have a virtual railfan there. I was about to say, I looked earlier. I was looking for cameras. I didn't see any there. How many people will this affect? I mean, it's going to affect the Lesser Antilles. I don't know the population across the board here, but it's probably at least 1 million. Probably a couple million, though, up and down the Lesser Antilles. And then after that, it's going to impact the Yucatan Peninsula. So, a couple different areas that we'll see impacts in. More than anything, Lesser Antilles are the imminent impact, and then the Yucatan is the long-term impact of this particular hurricane. Have a good night, David. Is it August already? I mean, it feels like it. We're still in June, by the way. It's still June, and we have a Category 4 hurricane for the next about hour and 45 minutes. Chat summary says we are discussing Hurricane Earl. I don't know where that came from, because I don't think we've said Hurricane. I don't think I've said the word Earl this entire live stream. Thank you, Earl, for the $5 super chat. Oh, that might be where Earl came from. Somebody named Earl just super chatted. What timing? Caribbean? I call it Caribbean. Caribbean? I call it Caribbean or Caribbean. You could call it either one. They actually do have live cameras in yeah, they do have cameras in Trinidad and Tobago. But there's nothing to see right now because it's not even there yet. Gotta figure out what country this even is. Is it further up to the north or south? Yeah, it's south. I don't know if we're really even going to see that much in Trinidad and Tobago. Like there will definitely be some storm surge, high winds, heavy rain. But honestly, like the worst of it is going to be near St. George, in both Grenada and St. Vincent. I don't know what these islands are here. There are a couple small countries here in the middle that are really the ones that are going to get hit the worst. Hillsborough and Ashton, those areas. We'll hit Jamaica. Jamaica will probably at least get some impacts, but right now, will it make a direct landfall? That's questionable. It could, depending on if it takes a more northerly track. I'm leaning towards this staying south of Jamaica, but if it does go towards Jamaica, that could be a bit dangerous. It probably would be a Category 2 or a low-end Category 3 by the time it gets there, if it does impact Jamaica directly. I would say more than anything, though, rain, some storm surge, especially on the eastern side of the island, and then also the potential for flooding will exist. But flooding should not be as big of a concern. Like, coastal flooding will exist, but, like, inland flooding is less of a chance, because the amount of rain that we're going to see in Jamaica would probably be upwards of, like, 5 to 8 inches in most areas. It wouldn't be, like, 30 inches, for example, because this is moving about 20 miles per hour off to the west-northwest. It's pretty quick moving. So it's a pretty fast moving hurricane right now. By the way, do you guys like the stream overlay? This is our first time ever having a hurricane stream overlay like this. Just curious. If there's any changes to it that you would suggest, let me know. Have a good night, Guy. Appreciate you tuning in. What's the weather threat for tomorrow? It's mostly Nebraska, but South Dakota could also see severe storms. Iowa could too. And I'll have a video on that tomorrow. I might even, there's a possibility that we do a video for the severe weather in the morning, and then we do a hurricane forecast around lunchtime or something. I don't know. I don't really know what we're doing yet tomorrow. That's a possibility, though. All I know is that we're working overtime the next, like, 3 days because of this hurricane. Maybe even more. Who knows? If this goes towards the United States, we're going to be in for a treat. There's going to be so many live streams on this channel, it's not even going to be funny. If you're new to the channel, again, make sure to subscribe down below. We'll have more live coverage like this for hurricane season. And we're probably going to have another one like this in the near future. I would expect something like this in the future. For sure. Free the gritty. We need like 16 more members for a gritty. I don't think it's happening. 16 more to have a gritty today. What about the storm behind it? Well, there will be a storm behind this one. Let me go back to infrared imagery, just wide scale here. Can't even see it really, but there's another area of development right here. There's not much to see, it's just a lot of convection right now. This would be our next tropical storm, possibly, depending on what happens with well, all right, let's rephrase this real quick. There is a tropical depression in the Southwest Gulf right now. All right, that's right here in the Southwest Gulf, moving into Mexico. right now, this is forecasted to make landfall in Mexico as a tropical storm. If this does become Chris, which is what is forecasted right now, then this other system behind this would be with the letter D, back over here in the southern Atlantic Ocean. That would happen after Chris, because this one's probably not going to develop tomorrow. It'll probably develop either Tuesday or Wednesday in the Atlantic Ocean into a tropical depression or storm. It'll basically be right behind Beryl. It won't be really far back from it. So this is what the future radar looks like. Let me pull it up and show you on the future radar. Show you what would actually happen. This is what it looks like on the future radar. So again, this is the Caribbean Sea, or Caribbean, whichever one you want to call it. I don't know why I call it Caribbean. I just... Pirates of the Caribbean, I guess that's where it comes from. So that's what it looks like as we go into Tuesday into Wednesday. So again, this is Hurricane Beryl. This is not the other one. That's Hurricane Beryl moving across the Caribbean. Eventually, as we go into late Wednesday into Thursday, the European model decides, hey, we're not going to go further. All right, let's go to the other run. Sorry. This is what it looks like. All right, so this as we go into Thursday, and that's Beryl. Eventually goes towards Mexico. By the time we go into Friday and as well as into Saturday, that other low pressure system should move into the Caribbean, but actually it might not. But the European model in the latest run doesn't actually develop that one that far to the west. This is the latest run, and actually, this is interesting, because the 00Z model run on the European model showed this going right behind it. Now it only shows it as a very brief tropical depression or some sort of just little low-pressure system, and then it just kind of fizzles. It doesn't really do much. Just kind of meanders. Which that is not what it showed earlier today, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, if you go back in time, actually it showed it on the 00Z model run, too. Interesting. Actually, it shows it on the last 3 runs. Is the GFS the one that shows it? Well, GFS shows it a little bit more. Just, it's not that impressive. I mean, if this one develops, let's just say this. If this one develops, it's not going to be that impactful. Because I don't think this one's going to develop as well as what we've seen with Beryl. Or Beryl. Beryl. Barreling west. But that's what I'm thinking, at least. I don't think it'll be as bad. I mean, it might develop. If it does develop, it's just another name. Or it might just be a tropical depression, and it might not develop at all. Hurricane merch, what do you think? I don't know, we'll see. I don't know what we would do for hurricane merch, to be honest. Have no clue. Can you use satellite 3D on severe storms that could produce tornadoes? Yeah. Go to the Cheyenne one. Which that one does not look like it's going to produce anymore. Unless it's like rain wrapped. You can do 3D radar on this too. This is 3D. Looks like a bunch of pencils sticking up into the sky here. It looks kind of weird. Have you seen the Barbados radar site? I don't know where you even see that. Is there a website for it? I never really look at trying to find that. Let me look. Let me see if I can find it. Barbados weather. They have a radar site I'm seeing here. Oh, they actually have several. Oh, you can actually see it. Yeah, they actually do have a weather radar site. I guess they're just not available publicly or something like that. This looks trippy right here. Now, this looks really trippy. Who is adding me on Discord? Oh, I found it. I got it. Yeah, I found the website. I just don't think it's available to public. Like, as in, like, it's not available to, like, or it might be available to public, but just not on, like, Radar Omega or anything like that. Tell Connor to get to St. George's and don't get stuck. Yeah, Connor, I mean, you know, 3rd time's the charm, I think. I don't think he's getting stuck in mud again in this year, at least. But who knows? We'll see. Look at the water vapor imagery. We haven't even looked at this. This is the water vapor imagery on Beryl. Or Beryl. Lots and lots of moisture. It's a very moist environment. Also got an outer band of storms blowing up just to the west of Kingstown right now. Just south, or just to the west of, or sorry, just to the east of St. Lucia and Kingstown. Little area of convection blowing up there. That's probably not going to be anything more than just like some hail, wind, and that's really about it. I mean, even hail is probably not going to happen, but there will at least be some damaging winds out of that cluster if it's able to reach land. Some heavy rain. We also got some, some bands trying to form on the east side of this hurricane. There could be some water spouts out there, but this area in particular, we're not really looking at any sort of, like in this area in general, we're not looking at any land impacts, just water spouts. So if you know any fish in this area, definitely let them know that there is a potential for some water spouts. It is a possibility. There are live cameras. Again, I just don't know if they are public use. Because there are traffic cameras and stuff like that. Like, those things can be different for those areas. Thanks for the coverage. Very surprised. This is so early, especially for this large one, or this large. Yeah, this is not, I mean, again, I normally do not do live streams like this when a hurricane is this far away from the United States, but it's just that shocking that we have something like this early. I mean, it's 1,700 miles away from Florida. That's the closest location it's to. It's almost 2,000 miles away. It's crazy how far this is, but it's also crazy how this even developed, and this developed so far to the east. I mean, this became a hurricane pretty far to the east of the Lesser Antilles, which hurricanes usually do not develop this far east of the Lesser Antilles this early in the year. That's also why it's shocking. So, am I streaming until it hits land? I'm not streaming overnight, no. I mean, I might be live tomorrow for it for a little bit, maybe, but I mean, I'm not going to be live overnight. There's not really much to talk about overnight, because, I mean, it's not going to make land. It's not going to really have any impacts for those areas until tomorrow morning. That's when the first impacts will be felt. But we'll see. Please get closed captioning. I can't follow without it. I mean, we don't have closed captioning because otherwise the stream delay is way more increased. And I'd rather have important weather information getting out to you quicker than having closed captioning on, because it could make the difference between, life-saving information and not having life-saving information, if you know what I mean. It's too much of a delay. 24-hour stream. I'm not doing a 24-hour stream for this. When will I stream tomorrow? I don't know. If we do live for this tomorrow, I mean, I don't know if I'm going live for this tomorrow, but if I go live for it tomorrow, it'll probably be sometime around lunchtime. If I go live tomorrow for severe weather, that'll be closer to like 5 o'clock Central or so. Texas landfall might or might not happen. Again, if you want my full detailed breakdown on all that, go to the very first 15 minutes of today's live stream or my video from today. It's possible. We just, again, don't really know. I think I'm leaning, I would give it like a 40% chance that we see a landfall there over in Texas. So, that's what I'm thinking right now. I would give it about a 40% chance. Louisiana, I would give like a 15% chance. Mexico, like for the third landfall or like the last landfall, this is what I'm talking about. Mexico, I would give the rest of the percentage. So 40, 15, and then 45 for Mexico. What was significant about Hurricane Harvey? It dumped like 40 inches of rain in Texas. It was absurd. It was a crazy, crazy hurricane. It was literally just so slow. It dumped so much rain. How will St. Lucia be impacted? Main concern will be hurricane force winds. They could get upwards of 80 to 90 miles per hour once this hurricane is just down to your south. Flooding rains will be possible, but it's not going to be a super big concern. More concerningly, we'll be talking more about the potential for storm surge. Storm surge is probably going to be one of your main threats, mainly across the east coast of St. Lucia. Harvey sucks so bad. I know. Harvey was awful. I remember watching that one too. There's a lot of historic hurricanes, don't get me wrong, but that one was absurd too. That one was one of the worst. We're currently 30 minutes away from the next National Hurricane Center update. I think we're going to be live until then. So I think we'll at least wait for that update and see if there's any major changes to the track or whatnot. And then after that, I think we'll be probably off for tonight. But again, we'll continue to answer questions, all that sort of stuff until then. As long as need be, because I do want to at least see that update. Which will be in about a half an hour. Maybe a bit sooner. Again, sometimes they come out sooner. I think let me check out when the latest update was. If it might even come out early, because they've been doing early updates. Let me check and see. I do not remember Tropical Storm Bill. Their 8 p.m. update came out 8 minutes early, so that's promising. The National Hurricane Center usually does release updates early. The Storm Prediction Center is usually behind by quite a bit. And their main update at 5 p.m. came out at 4:46. So, and that's an Eastern time. So we might get an update in the next 15 minutes. So yeah, we'll stay live. We'll stay live at least until the next outlook, because there might be some changes to what the intensity is. On the last few frames here on the infrared imagery, the eye has come together again. It's more organized. It was kind of wobbling a little bit. So we'll see if there's any sort of changes to the intensity. But again, that next outlook will be within the next 30 minutes. It might be sooner than that, though. So, am I sponsored? Today's stream is not sponsored by anything. It's sponsored, actually, by Drunk NATO merch. You got a Drunk NATO t-shirt, a wine tumbler, a pint glass at shopmaxvelocity.net. The link's in the description. I actually wore this shirt today into Publix, believe it or not. Will Invest 03 be named? I don't think there's an Invest 03. We're on like 96 or something, aren't we? Let me double check. Oh, I guess it is 03. Oh yeah, the one in the Southwest Gulf. I didn't realize it was Tropical Depression 3. You said why do they call it OL3? I don't like that. Oh, I see. Never mind. It might. I would give it like a 70% chance it'll become a tropical storm. I mean, as of right now, it's forecasted to at least become something that's just going to produce a lot of rain in Mexico. It'll probably briefly become a tropical storm, though. They have aircraft renaissance going out there right now to investigate it, so we'll see if it's intensified at all. Here's their current pathing on the system in the Southwest Gulf. So they're currently going southwest. It's down here by quite a bit, so they're still ways away. We won't have any update probably that's meaningful on that tonight, I don't think. We'll probably have something on that like tomorrow morning or something like that. But we should have some meaningful information out of Beryl, is my guess. So, just kind of waiting on that right now. So this is the latest, just some information on Beryl right now. This is just kind of a little update for you. Hurricane Beryl's inner core is beginning to shrink with a secondary core developing as a sign of eye wall replacement, which is what we've been actually seeing, and that's what I was mentioning before. This wobble that you're seeing, which you don't see it as much anymore, but before, you'll watch it over time here. You can kind of see how the eye starts to wobble a little bit. That wobbling, it kind of looks like it's shrinking. That is what you call an eye wall replacement. We had that happen with the Dahlia before it made landfall back in Florida of last year, so that happened. But it's more than likely going to be a little bit weaker as it does approach areas here near the Windward Islands here in the Lesser Antilles. Does that mean it's going to be weaker by 50 miles per hour? No, but it will probably be a little bit weaker in terms of wind speeds and such. But there's a very strong possibility that it could actually re-strengthen, possibly back over here near or just west of the Lesser Antilles. So, a couple things could change with this, though, just purely due to the fact of the eye wall replacement. What happened with the Dahlia is that the eye wall replacement happened, like, right about here or so, and then it eventually weakened a little bit as it got closer to land, and it didn't really have time to re-strengthen. This case, there will be time to re-strengthen in the Eastern Caribbean. So, no, right now it's here. It'll probably weaken a little bit up until about here or so, so right near the Lesser Antilles, and then re-strengthening would be a possibility in the Eastern Caribbean. But the problem is, as it goes into the Caribbean, there's going to be a bit more wind shear, and there's going to be a bit more dry air because of the Saharan dust, and just naturally a bit more dry air. So the intensity of this hurricane would eventually start to decrease no matter what over time. But there is a possibility here in the next like 24 hours we do get some more rapid intensification. This is, I mean, we mentioned this since like almost the beginning when we first started to see the wobble, because this wobble began back near the beginning of the stream. When did our stream start? What time was it? 8:30 or 8:20? So this is when it started to wobble right actually about 7:40 or so, 7:30. So about an hour before we went live, it actually started to wobble a bit. But it looks like it's starting to organize a little bit. That eye wall replacement is probably gonna at least weaken it temporarily and then intensify it again. It could drop to a category 3 on like a high-end scale, possibly, on the next outlook, but we'll see. What am I supposed to be looking at, Tucker? Oh, that's fun. Apparently, the chat-generated summary is saying Hurricane Max is approaching and might become a Category 5 hurricane. That's the first line. Apparently, I'm a hurricane. That's crazy. Isn't Max a hurricane name this year? Or is that coming up in like a few years? I think it's a few years away. I think Max is a name somewhere, though. Some year. I don't know what year. It's sometime, though. Apparently, I'm a hurricane. Hey, Mark, for the one gifted. Appreciate the generosity. Big red blob. Looks interesting. Yeah, this is just a big convective blow up. It's just a lot of thunderstorms that developed up here. That's all that is. North of Bridgetown. Just north of Bridgetown. Pretty big thunderstorm activity blowing up there. I mean, it's not gonna be anything crazy. Just wind, lightning, that sort of stuff. But again, probably within the next 20 minutes, maybe sooner, we will have our next National Hurricane Center outlook. Bottom left of your screen, it says National Hurricane Center update 11 p.m. That is subject to change. It could happen earlier. It doesn't usually happen later. They are usually pretty good about getting that out early. So we should have an update from them here shortly. So we're just going to wait for that. And then after that, we might be off for the night. So, but again, if you're new to the channel, subscribe. We'll be just kind of waiting for that for the time being. If you have questions, feel free to leave those in the chat. Category 10 Hurricane Max trending on TikTok. I'm telling you, that's gonna be a big thing on there. Actually, I'm curious. I'm gonna look on TikTok real quick and just search Category 6 and see if anything comes up. Please do not try this at home. It is very dangerous. It's very dangerous to do. Let me make sure my audio is muted on here so nothing plays. Sound mute. All right. Category 6 hurricane. Oh goodness, it literally is the top search thing. When I look up category 6 pops up. My brain hurts. I'm looking at this. My brain hurts. This person made a post. Will 2024 bring the first ever Category 6 hurricane? Oh my goodness. There's no way 65,000 people watched that video. There's just no way. Apparently back on February 5th, somebody was talking about a Category 6 hurricane too. Oh man, this is... I don't know why I looked this up. Let's look up Category 10 hurricane real quick. There are actually posts about a Category 10 hurricane. Oh my god. It's over. I don't know why people look at TikTok. I don't. It's mind-boggling. That's just insane. Hey, T. Rimmer for the $10 super chat. Do you know how many cheese curds you need to eat to produce a Category 6? I probably at least have to order 3 large sizes of those at Culver's. It's not even fear-mongering at that point. It's literally just not even, like, it's just misinformation entirely. It's not even, like, it's just, oh god, I don't even know. Category 6. People, I mean, I don't even know. I don't know what to say. It's TikTok. Oops. I can spin this around like that. I didn't even know I could do that. Can I go underneath the map? No, I can't. You can actually see this from a distance. Do you see that right there? You can actually see the United States from here. TikTok is a waste of time. Can't really disagree with you. Just like watching YouTube shorts and stuff. I like watching YouTube shorts, but that's the only thing I really watch is YouTube shorts, and I don't even really watch Instagram Reels or anything. YouTube shorts is all I watch. Yeah, TikTok I mean, YouTube Shorts I feel like is like 10 times better. Facebook Reels. Facebook Reels has some weird stuff on it too, though. Like Facebook Reels, if you go on there, like I find weird conspiracy things, and I also find a lot of weird like mental math equations. I don't know why. Like that's been my recommended, and I just don't like it. So I just don't watch that either. What's my opinion on Hurricane Idalia? I'm not talking about Hurricane Idalia. I don't know why I brought that up earlier. Friendly reminder, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. We are very close to 304,000 subscribers. We're 35 away, so make sure to subscribe down below. Today's video apparently had 170,000 views. Wow, I didn't even realize that. I really wasn't paying attention. It's actually, I think, more than the live stream. That's crazy. Really, 32 subscribers from 304. Make sure to subscribe. Yeah, the 3D view is pretty cool. And it's just it's like an extruded view. It's not like real, but like it's still pretty cool. I like looking at it. I like looking at it more though with like supercells, not as much as hurricanes. Did you hear about the 2 possible EF5 strength tornadoes that we're supposed to get in the next couple of months? Did you hear about the Category 8 hurricane that's coming in a few months? Did you hear about that on TikTok? We're 1 away. Sheesh. 304. Update is out? Oh, really? Wow, it's already out. Okay, we already got the National Hurricane Center update. And it's actually still a Category 4. So this is the latest update from the National Hurricane Center. We should get a new track and cone and all that here shortly. Hurricane Beryl, Advisory 10. Beryl is still a very dangerous Category 4 hurricane. Life-threatening winds and storm surge expected to begin soon for parts of the wind, or for portions of the Windward Islands, which will probably be within the next like 5 hours or so. So those impacts will begin soon. So that's the latest. We'll have a new cone, all that sort of stuff coming out here in a second. So stay tuned. We'll have that new information for you, whatever's new. But as of now, the sustained winds are still at 130 miles per hour, so there's not been any weakening. That's been really notable. It's actually still the same intensity, basically. It may have weakened slightly, which I think it did. I think it did weaken a little bit in here, but the eye has become reorganized again by quite a bit. So I think it's becoming more organized again. All right. Pressure went up 1 millibar, so it's back up to 959 millibars. It was 958 millibars. So again, that slight bit of weakening that we just saw with this eye wall replacement, that's what just happened. It's moving west at about 20 miles per hour, so it's about 1 mile per hour slower. Just waiting on the official graphics, the discussion, all that sort of stuff will be out here in a second. We'll see if there's any changes there. But that's the latest right now from the National Hurricane Center on Hurricane Beryl. But again, we should have another update, or we should have like a full-blown update here in a second on other stuff. So we're just waiting. We're waiting on the new cone of uncertainty, and if anything does shift here, we're just kind of waiting for that right now. So stay tuned. And while you're at it, subscribe to the channel. If you're wondering about the general forecast, because I know a lot of you guys are going to be tuning in over the next little while and wondering what is going to happen, again, go to the very beginning of today's live stream or go to my video from about, I don't know, 6 hours ago. The information is very much the same. Basically, it's minimally changed, like, from the video today. So if you want to check that out, I recommend either watching the video, which is like 8 minutes long, or watching the first 15 minutes of today's live stream as we go a bit more in detail, as that will be overall kind of giving you some idea of what's going to be happening over the next few days. And we're still waiting on the track update and all that sort of stuff. Trying to get the National Hurricane Center up here. I think it's huge. It is big. It is a big hurricane. Here's the latest. So they've actually done some changes to the overall forecast. This is interesting. All right, so the first notable change to the forecast is that the sustained winds currently forecasted tomorrow at the same exact time is 140 miles per hour. Initially, the forecast was by 2 a.m. tonight, this would become a Category 4 hurricane, which it already is, but up to sustained winds of 145 miles per hour. So initially, it was 145, but the eye-wall replacement that just happened kind of killed that for now. Meaning that the re-strengthening that we're going to see will probably be sometime tomorrow afternoon or evening in the Eastern Caribbean. So a little change there. But regardless, I still think it's going to get probably to at least a middle ground Category 4. Because right now it's at the lowest spectrum of a Category 4 hurricane at sustained winds of 130. 129 would be a Category 3. So it's kind of on that right now, that little cusp line. Let's see if the cone has changed, which I'm waiting for that as well. No update yet on the cone, I don't think. We're still waiting on the cone update. So the cone of uncertainty and all that. We're just waiting on that. That should be out here in a second, though. Okay, if you're just tuning in, we are just getting our 11 p.m. update from the National Hurricane Center on Hurricane Beryl. Should have an update in a second on some other fine details with this. Waiting on the new track of it and all that stuff. If anything changes, we will obviously let you know here. Hey, Justin, for the $2 super chat. It could shift towards Texas. I don't know if it... I doubt it will in this outlook, but maybe in the future outlooks it could. I don't know how much it's really going to change tonight. I don't feel like it's going to change that drastically. I think the track that we currently have is going to be probably what it's going to be throughout the day tomorrow, too. Barring a major change. Let me actually check out the discussion here real quick. So, the National Hurricane Center, this is a couple other details that they did not mention. Well, they mentioned, but this is a few other things that they mentioned in the actual discussion. There are a few pieces of evidence that show that Beryl is in the middle of an eye wall replacement cycle, otherwise called an ERC. We were just talking about that. You know, we've been talking about that throughout the entire live stream. The clear eye seen on infrared satellite earlier today has become a little more clouded over during the past few hours. In addition, the data from the last leg through Beryl from both Air Force Reserve and NOAA hurricane hunters indicated concentric eye walls. I don't even know what that word is. I've never heard of that word before. Which also matches current radar imagery that we're receiving from Barbados Meteorological Service. Let's see. I'm just going to kind of skip through some of this stuff. The initial intensity will remain at 115 knots for this advisory. Actually, skip some part. Oh, okay, so this is just kind of, I'm going to paraphrase this because it's a lot of words that people won't understand. But basically they said that they actually think that there are some things that do estimate that this is a slightly lower intensity. So it might actually not be currently a Category 4 hurricane, but they're going to continue to maintain the intensity at 115 knots for this advisory because it's basically close enough. Basically, they're saying that a couple of drop sound observations on the northeast quadrant of Beryl's inner eye wall kind of leave it to be a Category 4, at least for the time being. Let's see. Let's see if there's anything else here. Just trying to paraphrase some of this stuff because a lot of it's just a lot of words here. All right, so this is the other thing. Given the evolution, to Beryl's inner core structure tonight due to the ERC, which again is the eye wall replacement that we just saw happen, and it's kind of happening still. It would not be surprising to see a short-term fluctuation down in Beryl's peak winds. Through Beryl is expected to remain a very dangerous major hurricane as it crosses through the Windward Islands tomorrow morning. In fact, there could also be a bit of re-strengthening after the eye wall replacement completes in the northwestern Caribbean. And as reflected in the short-term forecast, after 48 hours, there's a subtle upper-level trough to Beryl's north that could induce a bit more of a westerly vertical wind shear over the hurricane, and some gradual weakening will likely continue beyond 48 hours. So again, we've kind of talked about this already, but after 48 hours, so after it gets past about this point here, so just south of Puerto Rico, it is expected to go under some gradual weakening as it moves west. There will be some wind shear, there will be some dry air, so there's expected to be some gradual weakening as this moves west, which is again what they're also alluding to right now. It should be emphasized that Beryl is forecasted to remain a significant hurricane through its entire track through the Caribbean region, though the most prominent weakening is likely if Beryl crosses the Yucatan between 4 to 5 days as shown in the latest forecast. So again, they kind of mentioned this as well. The potential that this goes into the Gulf of Mexico, it still exists. It might not even hit the Yucatan, but if it does hit the Yucatan, it would weaken much more because it's going over land. Obviously, if you've ever seen a hurricane before, if it goes over land, it weakens. They do not favor land. There's no water source, therefore, to really be with, other than it being on the immediate coastline. That's a bit different, but again, that's a possibility. Here's the latest cone. It actually just updated on here. So you can actually see right now, again, sustained winds at 130 miles per hour. It will move over areas in the Lesser Antilles in the next 12 to 24 hours with sustained winds at 130, and then eventually going up to 140 miles per hour, give or take 10 miles per hour on this as it moves into the Eastern Caribbean. I would not be surprised if this got closer to 150. I would not be surprised if it was near 130. Either one is possible, really. They're kind of in the middle ground at this point, but either one of those is still possible. And then after that, as it gets closer to the south side of Puerto Rico, it will begin to gradually weaken. With that weakening, though, it's not weakening by much. I mean, it's going to go down to a Category 2 hurricane, but look at the winds. They're not really that much different from a Category 4. The wind is going to probably stay south of Jamaica in particular. I think it'll stay mostly south, but there will at least be some impacts there that are tropical storm related, maybe even hurricane related. But I do think overall it will still be at least an intense hurricane, with storm surge and flooding rains being a possibility. Once it gets past Jamaica and then eventually approaches the Yucatan, it'll probably still gradually weaken, but again, it's still going to be bringing some impacts. And by the time it reaches the Yucatan, the question is, will it make landfall over the Yucatan Peninsula, or will it go into the Gulf of Mexico? It's a very small chance it misses the Yucatan entirely, because the Yucatan's pretty big, and it also is right now on track to continue to stay west with a ridge that'll stay weak and kind of drag it more to the west more than anything. Unless this ridge magically intensifies, it'll probably just go into the Yucatan and then eventually into Mexico or maybe South Texas long term. But if the ridge strengthens way earlier than expected, it could go into the Gulf and then perhaps towards like Louisiana. I still think it's a low chance of that happening, but it is a possibility with something like this. And then let's see, and a couple other key messages. Beryl is expected to remain an extremely dangerous major hurricane. Once it reaches the Windward Islands tomorrow morning, this is a very dangerous situation, and residents in these areas should listen to local government and emergency management officials and be prepared, and also do evacuation orders if you're in one. These should have been already completed by today, so hopefully you got those preparations done today, as significant impacts will begin early tomorrow morning. And again, this is not far from these areas. Obviously, the eye right now is still approximately 260 miles, 270 miles to the east of areas like, Grenada, for example, or even, St. Lucia or any of these islands here. So it's still pretty far out to the east. I think I just said west, but off to the east, basically. The hurricane's still pretty far east of those islands, but impacts will start to be felt a lot more as we go into tomorrow morning, because this is moving west at 20 miles per hour. Potentially catastrophic hurricane force winds and life-threatening storm surge and damaging winds are expected when Beryl passes over the Windward Islands, with the highest risk of the core in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I can't say that word, and Grenada beginning early Monday morning. Hurricane warnings are in effect for most of the Windward Islands, and then heavy rainfall and localized flooding is expected with this as well for the Windward Islands through Monday. Flooding is not the greatest concern, but it is a concern because we'll have some areas pick up localized upwards of 10 inches of rain. Beryl is expected to remain a powerful hurricane as it moves across the Caribbean Sea later this week. A tropical storm watch is in effect for the southern coast of the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Interests elsewhere in Hispaniola, Jamaica, and the Cayman Islands, and the remainder of the northwestern Caribbean should monitor its progress, and additional watches and warnings will likely be required this week. So that's the latest. Here's the difference. Let me show you this as well. This is the difference between the 5 p.m. advisory, or even the 8 p.m. advisory, versus the new advisory on the cone of uncertainty. I'm going to show you guys this, because this is going to kind of give you an idea of what has actually changed in this outlook. So this is the 11 p.m. I'm going to do a little flip it back and forth here. So this is the outlook. Let's do a little bit more widescreen here. This is the outlook here from 8 p.m., so 3 hours ago. This is the new outlook. So the main change here is really just how far west it's going. There's really been no directional change to this at all. They've condensed the cone of uncertainty a little bit to the point where it doesn't really flirt there with the coast of Haiti, and it also does show a slightly smaller gap here between the Yucatan Peninsula and the open ocean waters of the Gulf. So again, the confidence is growing that this will hit the Yucatan, eventually going into the southwestern Gulf, and then perhaps impact Texas and Mexico, and it could develop into a hurricane. But again, those details still remain a little bit uncertain because it is still well over 5 days out from now. That's the major difference there. Other than that, I mean, the only difference is that actually it did speed up a little bit. Sorry, it was actually 18 miles per hour that it was moving west-northwest. Now it's moving west at 20 miles per hour. So the speed actually went up by 2 miles per hour over the last 3 hours. It was originally at 21 this morning, so that's where I got that number from. And wind speed, again, the same. So nothing's changed there. It just went under an eye wall replacement. So intensification is possible past the Windward Islands. How intense it gets, it will probably just continue to intensify a little bit in terms of wind speeds into a middle ground category 4 hurricane. So that is the latest from the National Hurricane Center. And again, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. We will be keeping you posted with the latest with Hurricane Beryl, as it does continue to literally barrel off to the west. And we'll have probably another video on this tomorrow morning. If not, we will have at least some sort of update in a video tomorrow morning, because we're gonna have a video to some extent, whether that's about severe weather or it's about the hurricane. We'll see, but we'll have that update for you tomorrow morning. So make sure to subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon down below so you are notified if and when we have a video or if we go live again tomorrow. All right, that was a lot of talking there for like 10 minutes. Let me quickly just check in and see what we got here. Thank you, Barnhart, for the $5 super chat. Will La Nina increase the chance of hurricane activity along the east coast of the United States? I don't think it's like gonna be like a direct sort of thing that's gonna happen. I just think overall this hurricane season, it's gonna be active really anywhere you look. The east coast could also be pretty active when it comes to hurricanes. So we could have, you know, a hurricane or a tropical storm or whatever right up the east coast. But El Nino doesn't really directly impact one specific like region. It's more of just a general weather pattern that is forecasted. But the only thing that's changed short term, by the way, is that right now landfall is expected. Let me take off the satellite. Right now landfall is expected between about Dover's. This is the again the cone of uncertainty. So the landfall is expected right between about Dover's back towards areas like the Carriacou Islands, and then back through like Grenada. So landfall is expected between there. Unfortunately, some of the worst impacts will be felt here, probably near Grenada and also through the center part of this area as well, where we're going to have a significant surge of wind, hurricane force winds, flooding rainfall, and as well as the potential for some significant storm surge along the immediate coast. And there is also mountains here, which means mudslides and that sort of stuff will also be possible. So definitely a lot of stuff to be keeping in mind if you are in the Windward Islands or in the Lesser Antilles. This is an area that we're going to be seeing some, you know, quite significant impacts, unfortunately, over the next 24 hours. But hopefully it weakens more, but I just don't think it's going to. Again, it's a category 4. It hasn't weakened really at all. Like, there's been a very minimal weakening, but it's because of the eye wall replacement. So what's going to happen after this is that it's going to start to re-intensify as it continues to move west. So unfortunately, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of weakening to this. And Chris is now a tropical storm. I didn't even realize that. I did not see that. So Chris is apparently now officially a tropical storm. I think that actually just came out. Bruh. Tropical Storm Chris now exists. There's your third one of the season. All right. Yep, there you go. It's gonna be this little thing, this little guy down here in the Southwest Gulf. Let me put on the infrared here. Can't even really see it. I mean, it's just a bunch of thunderstorms, basically. It's not organized, but it's officially a tropical storm. We already have 3 named storms, and we're only through the month of June. But follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook. We're going to continue to post updates on Hurricane Beryl, and if Chris does anything, which I doubt it will, we'll also have updates on that. As it has now developed in the Southwestern Gulf. Our Twitter and Facebook links are in the description down below. We'll be posting, honest information. We're not going to be posting crap like clickbait stuff or whatever, you might see on Facebook, whatever it might be. We'll keep you posted with honest information. So make sure to follow us on those platforms, and we'll be keeping you posted with the latest with Hurricane Beryl, Tropical Storm Chris, and any other hurricanes that do impact the United States this year or any year really in general. We'll continue to keep you posted with the latest on everything. So again, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube here. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, all at Max Velocity WX. And also, if you want to follow us on TikTok, you can if you're on TikTok. We also just upload our videos from here to there. So it's really nothing different from what we post on here. But if you want to check that out, the link is also down there in the description down below. Highly recommend you follow us on all platforms, though, because we'll be posting a lot of stuff probably over the next several days. And we might have many live streams. It's possible. So it'll be definitely a busy next 2 weeks probably in the United States. I mean, the animals are going to be impacted by this, unfortunately, the sea animals and all that. So it's hurricanes do that, and this is not any exception, unfortunately. Any info on the wave behind Beryl? I don't think there's any update on it. I'll double check. They might come out with an update in a few minutes. I'm not sure if they will, but I don't think there's anything different with that one. Let me double check. Even if there was, it's not going to become really anything. It'll just be more rain, really, more than anything. Gusty winds, minor storm surge at worst, really. That's what it looks like, at least, from the long-term sense of things. As of 8 p.m., they have an update as of 8 p.m. They haven't updated it yet, though. They don't have an update as of 11 yet. We might just wait for that real quick and then get off. Thank you, Matthew, for the $4.99. We could have Debbie soon. Yeah, I mean, this area of development back out here to the west, or east, I mean, you can't see it on the map, but that would be another area to watch for, an area of development. I'm waiting for the official update here. We should have it in a second. If we don't have it in a minute or two, we're just gonna get off for the night. Yeah, the next outlook, for those that are wondering, will be 2 a.m. if you are going to stay up that late. I don't think there's going to be anything important there, because it's just a small update. The biggest updates, for those that are wondering, are 11 p.m. and a.m. and 5 a.m. and p.m. Eastern Time. There are updates every 3 hours, but the ones in between are usually pretty minor. They're usually not big changes. Thank you, Nathan, for the $1.99. How the hurricanes form? I mean, just in open ocean waters like this, where we have really warm water temperatures, that's where they form. They don't form over land. But if we got an area of low pressure with a lot of convection and it starts to spiral and organize with warm ocean waters, that's how they form, and that's really just a general Mickey Mouse type explanation. I don't know if that's the right word, Mickey Mouse explanation. I don't think there's any tornado warning or anything up here. Just hailstorms. There might be some sort of like debris signature from like that wouldn't be debris signature, but like some sort of CC drop from hail up in Montana. Like 2 people are saying it. I'll check real quick. I didn't really look at radar. That's just hail. And we're also in a radar hole, which doesn't help. Alright, let's see if this updated yet. Nope, not yet. Alright. I'll give it like 2 more minutes. Then I'm getting off. Friendly reminder, if you are new to the channel, though, again, make sure to subscribe. We'll keep you posted with the latest throughout hurricane season with the latest information. Like the stream as well. All that sort of stuff. Disney's on my mind? No. I mean, we're gonna be here for the next several days anyways. Is this thing kicking north? It's going west. It's not gonna be going north. I mean, it'll be going north, but not like directly north. It won't be going directly north until it gets into the Gulf, and that's even questionable. It might not go directly north. It'll probably just continue going west and west-northwest over time. No problem, Paul. What is that behind me? My YouTube play button, my lightning light, and a tornado crocheted that somebody sent me through fan mail. And we get an update on this. Still hasn't updated. They haven't updated the probabilities of the tropical system in the central Atlantic. That's all we're waiting for. See you later, Kyle. Appreciate you tuning in. The 2 comes out at 2 a.m. What do you mean? What, the probabilities update? That doesn't happen until 2 a.m.? I don't think so. I think it happens every 3 hours. When's the landfall expected? This would be sometime tomorrow just after, or probably around or just after lunchtime, if it does make landfall. And the thinking is that it'll make landfall near Hillsborough in the Lesser Antilles, but again, it could make landfall even as far south as Grenada, which is very possible. Thank you, Vicky and Seth, for picking up shopmaxvelocity.net merch. I do appreciate the support. Oh, it's at 2 a.m., the wave update? Okay. I thought it was at 11 p.m., but I guess not. Okay. Well, I guess that's it then. Alright, well, I do appreciate you guys all tuning in. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel, like the stream, all that sort of stuff. We'll be live possibly tomorrow again talking about this, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not sure what we're doing yet tomorrow, but more than likely we'll at least have some sort of live stream. We're going to be live, I think, for severe weather at the bare minimum, but we might also be live for this hurricane. I don't know. We might be live twice tomorrow. We'll see. So, again, if you're new to the channel, subscribe, like the stream. If you're new to the channel, again, subscribe. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. The links are in the description down below. Highly recommend you at least follow us on Twitter or Facebook, as we do post lots of updates on there regarding hurricanes, severe weather, all that sort of jazz. So, make sure to go ahead and check that out. Again, the link is going to be down below, or both links. And, yeah. If you want to support the page, links are in the description. Drunk NATO merch, again, this sort of stuff. The links are in the description for that as well. If you want to become a member of the channel, the join button's down below. We do members-only content quite often, at least when the weather's quiet. Right now, it's not quiet at all. So we'll be live again tomorrow, though, and we'll have a video tomorrow morning. I'm not sure what it'll be yet, but we'll have a video at some point tomorrow morning. All right? Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you guys all again soon. Have a great rest of your night. Stay safe if you're in the Lesser Antilles, and heed all warnings and evacuation orders, please. Otherwise, it is pretty dangerous if you don't with this sort of environment. All right? But once again, do appreciate you guys all tuning in. Have a safe rest of your night. And we'll see you guys all again in the next one.